Think of an anime that defined the childhood of an entire generation, yet today seems to exist in a strange limbo of collective memory. It's not Dragon Ball, not Inuyasha, and not Pokemon. I'm talking about that anime where a blonde kid shoots lightning from his mouth while his human friend walks around carrying a mysterious red book under his arm. If you watched broadcast TV or cable channels in the early 2000s, you know exactly who I mean. Zatch Bell. At first glance, it looked like just another goofy comedy about a bored child prodigy and his weird little brother. But anyone who actually stuck with it got hit right in the gut. What started as jokes about fish and dolls made out of snack boxes slowly turned into a brutal battle royale, where demon children had to burn each other's books to decide who would become the next king of their world. Was it funny? Absolutely. But it was also heartbreaking. Some of those goodbyes were powerful enough to make grown adults cry in front of the TV. So today, we're bringing this masterpiece back into the spotlight. We'll revisit the journey of the kindest Momoto of them all, understand why Kyo was the perfect partner, and of course, relive the battles that taught us the true meaning of friendship and sacrifice. A blonde and completely clueless kid hitches a ride in the talons of a giant eagle. This is Zatch Bell, and he makes a grand entrance, a low-budget Mission Impossible style, crashing into the life of Kyo. Kyo is your classic genius nerd, a Sheldon Cooper type, but with absolutely zero patience. He hates school because he thinks everyone is an idiot, but his peace is shattered when Zatch invades his room with a letter from Kyo's father. The mission? Kyo's dad saved Zatch, who has amnesia, and sent the boy as a gift to fix his son's antisocial attitude. Oh, and there's a mysterious red book in the package. During their first argument, Zatch shoots lightning out of his mouth and blows up the room. This is the Zocker spell. Kyo is shell-shocked but is forced by his mom to take his new little brother to school, or rather, Zatch sneaks along in his backpack. There, the usual team drama unfolds. Kyo humiliates a teacher with his superior intellect and listens to jealous gossip. But things heat up on the roof with Kane, the school bully. Trying to be a hero like Captain America, Zatch tries to defend Kyo but gets beaten up. Things get serious when Ido, a strange skater with wind powers, appears alongside his Momoto hide. They attack Kyo's friend, Suzy, and try to kidnap her. Kyo realizes Zatch's book is the key. In a moment of desperation and courage, he reads the spell. Zatch spits out a massive bolt of lightning that blasts the villains away, Team Rocket style. Far away, a mysterious duo, Sherry and Brago, observe the explosion and confirm the great battle has begun.
Momoto spell.
It's finally happened. The battle for Momoto King has begun.
Kyo spent the night trying to decipher the red book, like a fan trying to make sense of the Marvel timeline, but he can only read the first spell. Meanwhile, Zatch recovered from his wounds at Wolverine-like speeds, making Kyo even more suspicious of the boy's origins. On the way to school, the scenery shifts to a disaster movie. The river is frozen over with ice spears. They spot a getaway car carrying Hosokawa and Raycom, a duo straight out of Frozen but in villain mode. At the same time, poor Suzy goes to the bank and ends up in a hostage situation led by the ice-wielding pair. Joe sees it all on the news and freezes with fear. He knows using lightning in an enclosed space could go horribly wrong, but Zatch calls him out, questioning his cowardice. Joe swallows his fear, grabs a bike, and they head for the rescue. The plan is chaotic. They jump through the window like action movie stuntmen and land behind the counter. Their stealth attempt fails miserably when Suzy screams their names. Kyo tries to improvise by tying a chair to his foot to pretend they have backup, but the spell fails at the crucial moment. Hosokawa freezes Zatch and threatens the girl. Then, the tide turns. The desperation of seeing his friend in danger makes the book glow. Kyo realizes the power comes from emotion. Fueled by pure rage, Zatch shatters the ice and unleashes a Zocker that defeats the thugs and saves the day. They become local heroes, and the book unlocks a new power, the Rash Shield spell. Kyo tries to decipher the new Rash Shield spell but has no luck. To get Zatch off his back and go to school in peace, he creates the legendary Vulcan 300, a doll made of a snack box and chopsticks. It's basically Wilson from Castaway, but to Zatch, it's peak high-tech. At school, the bank hero fame has gone to everyone's heads, and all eyes are on Kyo. The bully Kane tries to pick a fight again, but Zatch, who followed Kyo despite having his doll, jumps into the fray. Later, Suzy tries to set a romantic mood, but she's interrupted when the ice villains Hosokawa and Raycom return for revenge. The mood turns dark. Hosokawa reveals that Raycom is fueled by pure hate and that he views his partner as nothing more than a tool to get rich. It's that toxic toxic villain dynamic that makes any protagonist see red. They manage to freeze Kyo's arm to the ground and steal Zatch's book. There's just one problem for them. Hosokawa can't read the book. Zatch recovers the grimoire with a football-style tackle. Kyo, furious at the villains for treating partners like objects, breaks the ice, literally, through sheer willpower. When the villains launch a final ice attack, Kyo bets it all and shouts the new spell, Rash Shield. A giant electric shield surges forth, reflecting the attack and returning the damage with interest.
It worked! A shield! Maybe something more!
The impact burns Raycom's book. The enemy begins to fade as the book turns to ash, revealing the cruel rule of this game. If the book burns, it's game over, and the partner vanishes forever. Sherry watches from afar, knowing this is just the start of a brutal war. The vibe is heavier than a teen drama season finale, complete with rain and all. Zatch is on a bad trip after discovering he's not a normal kid and tries to prove his worth at a playground. He wants to show his lightning to some random kids, but fails miserably. Kyo arrives with angry dad energy. They have a nasty argument, and Zatch tells him to get lost, running away. Alone in the rain, Zatch befriends a stray dog in a very Disney movie moment. Meanwhile, the gothic duo Sherry and Brago knock on Kyo's door. They're here to give the tutorial. 100 Momoto children are on Earth fighting a battle royale, Hunger Games or Fortnite style, to decide the next king of the Momoto world. The rule is simple. If your book burns, it's game over, and you're deported back home. Sherry wants to save Zatch by forcibly removing him from the competition and attacks Kyo. Zatch sees everything through the crack in the door, grows even more heartbroken, and runs back with the dog. But here comes the plot twist. On the street, a strange man named Renji appears. He pulls out a book and transforms the cute dog into a giant buff beast. It's like finding out your favorite pet is a horror movie monster in disguise. Zatch learns the hard way that in this game, you can't even trust man's best friend. The demonic dog lunges at Zatch, and Kyo flies down the stairs to save his partner, totally ignoring the danger. The dog's owner, Renji, drops the truth bomb. That whole friendship was fake news, just to corner Zatch. Zatch is heartbroken, but Kyo tanks the rock attacks with his own body, proving he's the MVP of the round. Sherry and Brago decide they've seen enough incompetence and join the fray. Using absurd gravity magic, they crush the dog against the wall like a piece of paper. Renji runs away with his tail between his legs, abandoning both book and pet. Now, it's time for the boss battle. Sherry uses gravity on Kyo, Interstellar style, trying to force him to hand over Zatch's book. Even while being crushed into the pavement, Kyo refuses to give in and delivers a classic shonen motivational speech. He and Zatch synchronize, launching a massive Zacher against Brago's ultimate attack. The explosion is Dragon Ball level and ends in a draw. In the middle of the smoke, Kyo still tries to fight but passes out. Sherry, impressed by the kid's stubbornness, returns the book and lets them live for today, exiting like a mysterious anti-heroine. Kyo is in the hospital looking like a mummy from a B-movie after the recent battles. A starving Zatch starts stealing food from his roommate, Yuta. Yuta is in a rebellious phase, refusing to eat because he thinks his broken leg will never heal. Kill, out of patience for the drama, gives it to him straight. If you don't eat, you don't heal. The kid gets ticked off by this logic and decides to get revenge by stealing the red book. A wild chase through the hospital begins. Susie tries to help but gets lost in the hallways so many times she looks like a horror movie character who can't find the exit. Kyo has to escape a tough nurse using orange juice as a chemical weapon in a scene that would leave the Mission Impossible crew confused. On the roof, Zatch finds Yuta and, with his usual innocence, convinces the boy they are friends. However, the kid slips and falls off the building. Kyo arrives at the last second and uses Zacher to blow out the floor below, creating a soft landing in the laundry room. An improvised rescue, but it worked. In the end, Yuta starts eating again, thinking he'll gain superpowers, and Kyo passes out, ignoring Susie, who is probably still lost looking for the exit. Zatch is on a solo mission to make friends at the park, but things are going south. First, he's attacked by the excessive love of Ponygon, a small horse that acts like a golden retriever. Then, he tries to interact with Naomi, the Regina George of the playground, who humiliates him and sends the poor guy flying off a merry-go-round like a NASA astronaut in training. Running out of options, Zatch goes to the botanical gardens with Kyo and Susie. The vibe is zen until they meet Ivy, a friendly botanist, but peace is short-lived when Haru and Sudino show up, turning the garden into a war zone. They control mutant plants and decide to use the visitors as target practice. Kyo, always the team strategist, spots the attack pattern and treats it like an FPS game. He uses Zatch as a mobile turret, firing Zacher while on the run, run. The tactic works until the villains catch on and target Ivy. Kyo tries to save everyone, but he burns through too much mana and runs out of energy. The villain takes the chance to give the classic "you are weak" speech and prepares the final blow. In that moment, Kyo remembers he's not on this journey alone. The power of friendship hits turbo mode and the book glows. He fires a rash shield right in the nick of time, reflecting the villain's ultimate attack back at them.
Got a shield! How can they still cast this?
Sugino's book catches fire, and he vanishes. At the end, Suzy pops up out of nowhere with a piece of fruit, totally oblivious to the apocalypse that just occurred, proving that ignorance really is bliss. Grab the tissues because things just got heavy. We need Kalulu, a little girl who looks like she stepped out of a Disney movie. She's taken in by Lori, a lonely teenager, and the two become instant sisters, complete with cute dinners and flower crowns. Meanwhile, Naomi continues her life mission of tormenting Zatch, running him over with a toy car in a scene worthy of a baby version of Fast and Furious. But fate crosses their paths when Zatch meets Kalulu at the park. They compare toys, Kalulu's perfect handmade doll versus Zatch's Vulcan 300, which falls apart in his hand like a knockoff product. The cuteness ends when Lori accidentally reads the book. The sweet Kalulu transforms into a monstrous berserker version of herself, like the Hulk, but with claws and zero emotional control. She destroys everything in her path against her own will. The next day, the confrontation happens. Zatch and Kyo fight to defend themselves, but realize that Lori and Kalulu are both crying mid-battle. Then comes the gut punch. Kalulu returns to normal and begs Zatch to burn her book. She explains that she has a second personality forced to fight and doesn't want to hurt anyone else. It's a brutal sacrifice. Zatch refuses at first but realizes it's the only way to save her human sister. Kyo burns the book with a heavy heart.
Zatch!
Ah! Huh? Wait a second, what happened? What'd you make me do, Kyo?
She was right, Zatch.
Before vanishing, Kalulu says that if Zatch becomes a kind king, maybe these cruel battles will end. Zatch makes the promise that changes the whole series. He will be that king. Inspired by the promise he made to Kalulu, Kyo wakes Zatch up to test a new spell that appeared in the book. They go out into the woods and try everything, even using anger as fuel, dark side of the force style. But nothing happens. The Jikardor spell seems more useless than a holiday on a Sunday. Meanwhile, a new duo arrives in town. Fane is a speedster Momoto, basically the Flash if he were a total psychopath. He arrives causing traffic accidents and beating up civilians just because he can. When they cross paths with our heroes, the brawl begins, and Kyo realizes he's at a total disadvantage against the enemy's speed. They try to flee to an abandoned building, but Fane is always one step ahead, essentially teleporting through raw speed. Kyo tries to use Rash Shield to block and counter, but the speedster dodges in midair. When a lethal attack heads for Kyo, Zatch throws himself in front and tanks the damage, proving he's the most loyal shield there is. With Fane coming in for the kill, they risk the new spell one more time. This time, it works. Jikardor turns Fane into a giant magnet. Since they're in a building full of metal, the villain is violently pulled toward a water tank and gets stuck there, looking like a cartoon character glued to a wall.
My body is... I'm stuck to the water tank!
Kyo realizes the spell needed nearby metal to function. With the enemy immobilized like a reverse Magneto, they burn the villain's book, and Zatch reinforces his goal. He'll get strong, but only to be a kind king. Naomi continues to be Zatch's personal nightmare, trapping the poor kid at the top of a playground structure. Kyo, in a not my problem moment, leaves him there but quickly regrets it when he sees a strange man loitering with a spell book. The guy is Shin, a 6'6" mountain of a man who even scares off Naomi, but he's actually a sweetheart and helps Zatch. But then comes a plot twist worthy of an M. Night Shyamalan movie. The little boy with him, Eshros, is the Momoto, and the hulking Shin is the human book owner. It's a total inversion of Zatch and Kyo, and the demon brat is toxic as hell, manipulating Shin into destroying his old school on a Saturday morning by using the man's past trauma from bullying as fuel. Kyo and Zatch try to stop the attack. The fight begins, and Eshros shows off heavy-duty earth powers. Mid-brawl, as Zatch tanks, rocks, and blasts, Shin has a flashback of his late mother asking him to be strong. He realizes that becoming a middle school terrorist isn't exactly what his mom dreamed of. Shin finally finds his courage, stands up to Eshros, and in a moment of redemption, hands over the book to be burned. He chooses to lose his memories of the battle to keep his conscience clear. In the end, the gentle giant is free from his abusive boss and moves on, while Zatch and Kyo earn some moral XP. While Kyo and Zatch wait for Suzy to wake up, Parco Folgore finally makes his entrance, arriving with the vibe of a washed-up rock star mixed with Elvis Presley. He starts singing "Hey Hey Let's Dance All Day" Shichu Omoge, and it's so bizarre and hypnotic that Zatch starts dancing along. Kyo, obviously the only one with functioning brain cells, fires off a Zacher to kill the mood. The ensuing fight is pure slapstick comedy. Fulgora tries a transformation spell that turns his Momoto into a human cannon, but it's as useful as a Mapkin in a storm because he doesn't actually fire anything. Seeing his partner embarrass himself, Kunch only unlocks a new spell and pulls an Ant-Man, shrinking down to try and sneak attack Kyo. The problem is, size isn't everything, and he keeps getting smacked around.
This is just the beginning. Take that and that and that. Oh, you'll never defeat me now.
Eventually, the Italian duo realizes they don't stand a chance against the protagonist and decides to strategically withdraw. Basically, they run away. It was less of a death match and more of a Looney Tunes episode. Total change of scenery. We're in the middle of the Amazon, Indiana Jones style, but with more depression and monsters. Brago is in full Bear Grylls mode, eating an entire alligator for dinner while Sherry can barely stay on her feet. Here, we dive into the blonde's heavy backstory. Before the battle, Sherry's life was like Cinderella, but without a fairy godmother, and with an abusive mother who'd make a Disney stepmother look kind. Sherry's only light at the end of the tunnel was Coco, a kind-hearted friend who saved her after she jumped off a bridge. They were inseparable until a Momoto named Zophis appeared. Zophis brainwashed Coco, a Clockwork Orange meets Dark Phoenix style. The sweet girl turned into a pyromaniac who burned down her own village and attacked Sherry. That's when Brago appeared, handed the black book to Sherry, and saved her life. Back in the present, they face a duo of Plant Momotos. Sherry is exhausted, but the memory of Coco gives her an adrenaline boost. They unleash a colossal gravity spell that basically terraforms the entire forest. Brago, despite playing the tough guy and complaining the whole time, carries Sherry on his back at the end, proving that deep down he cares for his partner, even if she is fragile and human. Mochinoki City is having its own Twister moment, with a mysterious hurricane stealing everything in sight: clothes, CDs, and most importantly, Yellowtail burgers. Zatch, who has the nose of Scooby-Doo when it comes to food, decides to investigate, not for justice, but for his stomach. Following the scent of fast food, the dynamic duo finds the culprits, Ido and Hyde, the win-using rivals from the first episode. Ido still has that lazy teen who hates effort vibe, enjoying the spoils of his theft. The reunion turns into a warehouse brawl, but the villains have the advantage of flight, making them as unreachable as a mosquito in summer. Kyo, with his genius IQ, notices they are in a water reservoir tank. He tells Zatch to break the ceiling, flooding the place. And as anyone who has played Pokemon knows, electricity in water is super effective. The shock is brutal. When Ido is cornered and about to lose his book, a soap opera moment unfolds. Hyde sacrifices himself to protect the book, and Ido, seeing his partner's loyalty, finally gets his act together and decides to fight for real. The power of friendship unlocks a new spell, Jikirga, creating a concentrated tornado. The clash of powers blows up the entire building. In the end, it's a tactical draw. The villains escape, but instead of training for a rematch, Ido decides to stay lazy and flirt with girls. Priorities, right? Kyo was dragged to a pop idol concert by Megumi, giving off major Taylor Swift vibes with crazed fans everywhere. Zatch tries to gatecrash but gets barred. Backstage, we meet Megumi and her Momoto partner, Tia. The little one is hardcore and lives by the paranoid mantra that there are no friends in this battle, a very Hunger Games mindset, and she has her reasons. A sad flashback shows she was betrayed by Bruuce, an old friend from the Momoto world who tried to eliminate her as soon as the tournament began. Speak of the devil, Bruuce appears at the show with his partner Rembrandt to finish the job. Zatch, who managed to sneak in, finds Tia and without hesitation throws himself in front of the attacks to protect her. Tia's brain short circuits. Why is this weak kid she used to tease in the past tanking damage for her? She thinks it's a trap, but Zatch's sincerity breaks through her emotional walls. While Zatch becomes a punching bag holding the villain back, Tia runs to find Kyo. Back on stage, the battle resumes. Tia and Megumi try to defend themselves with energy shields, but Bruuce uses a sneaky underground attack that shatters their defense. When all seems lost and game over is flashing on the screen, Kyo and Zatch come flying in with a life-saving Zacher, proving that sometimes heroes wear capes, but in this case, they carry red books. Now the gloves are off. It's 2-on-2. Kyo realizes the obvious. Bruuce is covered in chains and metal, meaning he's basically a walking lightning rod. Terrible outfit choice for fighting an electric Momoto. Zatch tries to talk it out, reminding him of the peaceful days. But Bruuce is full tilt and only cares about becoming king through violence. The battle gets intense, with Maru's using giant spike attacks. Tia, finally trusting in teamwork, focuses on the ultimate defense. She launches Masae's shield, a powered-up shield that holds back the wave of attacks, allowing Zatch to go on the offensive. It's the perfect tank and DPS combo. While Tia blocks, Zatch charges. Kyo, coordinating everything like a chaotic conductor, waits for the right moment. With Maru's vulnerable, Zatch unleashes a point-blank bolt of lightning. The villain is struck dead on, and his book erupts in purple flames. Bruuce is sent back to the Momoto world screaming, eliminated from the competition. In the end, the lesson is learned. Tia realizes not everyone is a backstabber and forms an alliance with Zatch and Kyo. And of course, Megumi gets back on stage because the show must go on. At least now they have a healer on the team. Kyo is walking home from school when everyone starts asking about Suzy. He gets home and finds a bizarre statue of the girl tied up. Zatch found it at the door with a ransom note. Either they go to the harbor in 10 minutes, or it's curtains. They race against the clock and arrive at a warehouse that's basically a giant freezer. Inside, the temperature drops with the arrival of Robnos and his partner Ruku. Robnos thinks he's invulnerable and starts attacking. The guy fires lasers that ricochet off the walls and ceiling, looking like a light show at a dangerous rave. Kyo tries to use Rashield, but the laser curves and hits him from behind. Physics just isn't making sense. In the middle of the desperation, Kyo remembers Suzy and her face-shaped fruits at the hospital, drawing strength from that sheer randomness. He tells Zatch to destroy the boxes in the room, scattering ice on the floor. The sound of footsteps on the ice reveals the trick. It's not teleportation. It's the old twin trick from the Prestige. There are two Robnos. Kyo uses Jikurdor and yanks the imposter off the wall, but the villain won't quit and merges with his double, getting a power boost. Kyo, out of magic, improvises a crazy plan. He has Zatch hurl him while he holds a metal bar. He jams the metal into Robnos' helmet, turning the guy into a human lightning rod. Zatch strikes the bar with lightning and boom, system fried.
By waiting for him to build up energy in his own helmet, it amplifies Zakira's power through the iron pole, like lightning through a rod.
Before the book burns, Robnos drops a bombshell. Suzy was never kidnapped. The statue was based on a photo, and more importantly, he saw someone identical to Zatch in England. Now the mystery has gone international. Summer is here, but Kyo forgot one detail. He promised to hang out with literally everyone in his class before traveling to England. The kid has 3 days to do a friendship speed run, or he'll look bad. He sets up an insane schedule. First, he helps Yamanaka with baseball by using Zakir to create an invisible fireball. Then, he hunts insects and outruns bees. While fishing, he uses Zatch as an outboard motor to catch 500 fish. In ping pong, a sports anime level battle ends 1000 to 984. He even finds time to hunt a legendary snake with Zatch dressed as a monster and summon UFOs by dancing all night. The next day is the camping trip. Kyo tries to leave Zatch behind, but the Momoto and Ponygon, who poor guy gets thrown from a moving cart, follows the bus. At dinner time, Kyo becomes a Gordon Ramsay of chaos. He doesn't know how to cook, so he throws chocolate, honey, and fruit into the pot. The group is nervous, so he fixes it with heat. He throws in wasabi, mustard, and everything that burns. The curry turns into pure lava, but hunger wins out. After nearly killing the class with spicy food, fireworks go off, leading to a touching slice-of-life moment. Kyo finally relaxes with his friends. In the end, luck shines on Suzy, who wins a trip to Hong Kong in a raffle. Meanwhile, Kyo and Zatch board a flight to the UK to hunt down the mysterious evil doppelganger. London calling. The dynamic duo lands in England to find Kyo's father and investigate the double mystery, but the first thing they find is Kanchome crying his eyes out near a performance. The reason? Parco Fulgora has vanished, leaving the production in a panic. Kyo and Zatch play detective and follow the star's trail. During this touristy search, we see Suzy, who is in London but insists she's in China. She's so spacey, she literally bumps into Fulgore on the street and doesn't even notice. Kanchome, of course, is no help at all, drooling over fish instead of assisting. The clues lead to a hospital. Kyo, thinking Fulgora is just slacking off, arrives and gives the guy a shot.
Two!
As a matter of fact.
But plot twist, the superstar wasn't running away to party. He was visiting sick children in the pediatric ward, bringing gifts and putting on a private show. The guy has a heart of gold. Kyo feels like the villain, apologizes, and tells Fulgore to get back on stage and finish the show like a legend. Everything seems right, and they leave the hospital to finally meet Kyo's dad, until a kid runs past and steals Kyo's bag. Welcome to London. Nothing is going to be easy. The chase begins at high speed, like a scene from Need for Speed, with Kyo and Zatch racing after the young thief. Cory. When the adrenaline fades, the vibe shifts to a Grey's Anatomy episode. Kyo notices the boy's arm is in bad shape, covered in old bandages and infected wounds. The protagonist plays doctor, cleans the wound and tries to understand the situation, but Cory gets cagey when his parents are mentioned. The trio heads to the university to find Kyo's father, but instead of an emotional reunion, they run into Professor D'Artagnan dressed as a tuna. Yes, a bizarre cosplay that would make Lady Gaga proud. After that random moment, they find Kyo's father's office completely trashed, looking like a crime scene from CSI. Kyo finds Momoto footprints and strange flowers, realizing instantly his father has been kidnapped. Under pressure, Cory spills the beans. A Momoto has taken over a nearby castle, Castle Hobart, and kidnapped his parents. The kid is terrified but guides them there. Along the way, Fulgora and Contreme appear out of nowhere to fill out the RPG party. Inside the castle, it turns into a brutal game of Dungeons and Dragons. Armored knights attack, and Zocker barely scratches them. Kyo, improvising like he's in an Indiana Jones movie, grabs a weapon from the floor and discovers the demonic flowers are controlling the armor from the inside. They push forward through rooms filled with deadly traps. Flying swords, trapdoors, which the comic duo falls through naturally, and ceilings that collapse Star Wars style. Finally, they meet the stage boss. Staying in his giant Momoto, Baltro, the villain is overconfident, using Baltro's mechanical limbs to try and crush our heroes. Stang brags about having kidnapped Fulgore and Contreme, using the friends as hostages to stall the fight. The situation is dire, worthy of an 80s action movie climax. Stang gives the classic cowardly villain speech, using Conchome and Fulgora as human shields, and demanding the Red Book. Kyo takes a brutal beating but discovers Stang is just a mercenary hired by someone else to kidnap his father. When all seems lost, Cory decides he's not going to be just a scared NPC. The kid finds his courage, pulls a Mission Impossible move, and steals the book back. With the book in hand, the tables turn. Kyo uses his photographic memory to map out the flowers controlling the giant robot, and Zatch becomes a lightning sniper, destroying everything. Then comes a Scooby-Doo style plot twist. Baltro's armor falls away to reveal the real Momoto as a tiny, ridiculous creature who was piloting the whole thing. Humiliated, Stang loses it and decides to bring the whole castle down to escape, triggering self-destruct mode. Zatch and Kyo race against time, rescue Kyo's father, and head down to the dungeons to save Cory's parents while everything collapses around them. Very Uncharted style. Everyone makes it out alive, a happy ending for the good guys. But the episode ends with a dark post-credits scene. Stang and the mini Baltro run into the woods and meet the mysterious boy who hired them.
Of course I did. And you let him beat you. Isn't that right, Baltro?
Wait a second, what's the...
Showing no mercy, the boy burns their book. Game over for the fake giant. After the victory party in London, Kyo has a heart-to-heart with his father regarding Zatch's amnesia. A clue leads them to the fairy forest, where Zatch was originally found. Upon arriving at a nearby village, they receive a cold welcome. The locals flee in terror, believing Zatch to be the monster that's been haunting the area. Before entering the woods, they run into Megumi and Tia. The mood sours instantly. Tia lunges at Zatch with a vengeance, swearing he ignored her earlier. Kyo has to explain that there's an evil Zatch on the loose, creating a classic Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man identity crisis. The investigation continues with just the original duo. Zatch gets lost, is attacked by snakes, and is saved once again by Professor D'Artagnan, who has swapped his tuna suit for a fairy costume. Don't ask. They find a massive crater that serves as a trigger for Zatch's memory. In a Jungle Book-style flashback, Zatch remembers living peacefully in the forest with the animals until his evil look-alike appeared. The doppelganger didn't just attack Zatch, he used a power to wipe his memories, like a neuralizer from Men in Black, and stole his identity. With this bombshell revelation, the book glows, and Zatch unlocks his fourth spell. Meanwhile, from the shadows, the look-alike watches it all, ready to cause more trouble. At the beach, while Susie plays in the water, Kyo and Zatch try to cast the new spell, Bauza Kerga. Expectations are high, but the result is zero. Suddenly, the Momoto's attention is diverted by singing coming from the cliffs. It's Yopopo, a dancing green demon who looks like he walked out of a Broadway musical gone wrong. Zatch and Susie join the dance, but the fun ends when Jen, Yopopo's partner, arrives and cracks a frying pan over Zatch's head. The girl is complicated. She acts like she hates Yopopo in a classic teen drama move, but in reality, the monster dances to lure an enemy and protect her family. The target of his revenge is an English gentleman, a villain in a suit, and his giant armored partner, Kikuropu. It doesn't take long for the villainous duo to show up. Yopopo charges into battle alone, taking a beating like Rocky Balboa, but refuses to back down. down. Kyo and Zatch arrive to save the day, but their standard shields and lightning bolts can't pierce the enemy's armor. When the gentleman launches a fire attack at Jen, Yopopo throws himself in front of it, risking his own book. Kyo is infuriated by the cruelty, and in that moment of desperation, the book glows. Finally, Baozakerga is unleashed, a massive lightning dragon that devours Kikuropu's armor in seconds. With the opponent defeated, Yopopo's book begins to burn. Jen finally admits she loves her dancing friend, and he disappears with a smile, leaving everyone on the beach crying harder than the ending of Toy Story 3. Before leaving England, Kyo's father shows them an ancient stone tablet at a university with a major Indiana Jones vibe. It seems this Momoto battle happens in a 1,000-year cycle, but the mystery is sidelined because it's time to head back to Japan. Upon arriving home, the duo discovers a stowaway in their luggage, Ponygon, the creature that looks like a horse but acts like a dog. Kyo's welcome home consists of bites, lots of bites. In his room, Kyo finds an orange book in his backpack. Surprise! Ponygon is a Momoto. The little guy tries to show him the book but gets tangled in his harness. Kyo, trying to help, cuts the straps, and the horse goes into a total panic. Communication is a disaster. When Kyo's school friends arrive, Ponygon turns into a sweet angel for everyone else but keeps attacking Kyo, who eventually loses his cool and kicks him out like Shrek sending Donkey away. Zatch and Tia explain the truth. Ponygon is alone and looking for a human partner. He attacks Kyo out of pure professional jealousy, since Kyo is already taken. Feeling guilty, Kyo finds the little horse in town being ignored by strangers and invites him to stay at his house until he finds his partner. The final hurdle is the name. The horse wants to be called Schneider, a noble name, but Kyo decides to dub him Ponygon anyway. The result? More bites to Kyo's head.
Ponygon, no, wait, stop! Oh, ow, hey, don't bite me again, what?
Back to the grind, Kyo saves Suzy from becoming roadkill in a near accident, but he realizes someone acted first. Apollo and his Momoto, Rops, used magic ropes to stop the car. They're a mysterious duo that looks like they stepped out of an indie road movie. Following them to the park, Kyo finds Apollo playing music and enchanting the kids like a modern-day Pied Piper. Apollo is all about peace and love, claiming he just wants to travel the world into the wild style and doesn't care about the battle for the throne. Kyo lets his guard down, thinking he's made a pacifist friend, but Apollo suddenly changes his tune. He notices a different spark in Kyo's eyes and decides to challenge the duo to test their resolve. Meanwhile, Zatch has a motivational moment in the park with Lori, reaffirming his promise to be a kind king. The fight breaks out at a quarry. Apollo proves he's not just some hippie musician. The guy moves like Neo in the Matrix, dodging falling rocks as if it's nothing. He uses pure strategy, stealing Kyo's book in a ninja move and leaving the duo cornered by Rops. What started as a deep conversation has turned into one of the most tactical battles yet. Things are looking grim at the quarry. Suzy is lost on an impossible mission to deliver lunch, but the real trouble is Zatch and Kyo being cornered by Apollo. The musician and Rops keep hurling giant boulders like they're confetti. Joe tries to fire off a Baozakerga out of desperation, but it fails miserably, like trying to start an old car in the dead of winter. Apollo senses that our hero is mentally broken and dials up the pressure. Zatch has to take the lead, giving a motivational locker room speech worthy of a sports movie, reminding Kyo of the promise made to Kalulu. Kyo snaps back to reality, his book glowing brighter than high beams, and the battle turns into a high-speed game of chess. Then comes the plot twist. After taking a shock, Rops stands back up despite being thrashed. Apollo has an emotional flashback showing Rops using his powers to help him cross a sealed border. Their goal isn't power, it's freedom. Fueled by this, they unleash their special, Dino Rignon, which basically summons massive anchors and chains to drop an entire mountain on Zatch. Kyo and Zatch respond with a Baozakerga, now boosted by the power of friendship. The two spells collide in an explosion that knocks everyone out.
Finishing touch!
The result is a technical draw. Apollo, being a stand-up guy, befriends the duo, is invited to spend the night at Kyo's place, but Rops takes a wrong turn and they continue on their journey, leaving behind the lesson that not every rival has to be a maniacal villain. Zatch gets separated from the group and loses his lunch. Hunger sets in, but he's saved by Nana Baba, a giant elderly woman with the energy of a force of nature. In exchange for food, Zatch decides to help the old lady find her son and his fiancée in the big city. The search turns into a comedy of bearers, with Zatch trying to track down the bride based only on descriptions of clothes that Nana Baba considers scandalous. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack if the needle were wearing neon pink. After a lot of running around and nearly missing the bus, they find the couple. Zatch expects a soap opera scandal, but Nana Baba approves of the fiancé and hands over a family ring, proving that appearances are deceiving. The episode ends with Zatch reflecting on family and returning home, where Kyo notices the kid has grown a little, even if it was just during a random one-day adventure. Kyo is excited about a famous statue arriving in town, but all Zatch can think about is fish. Cut to Danny, a feisty Momoto, and his partner Goldo, who are transporting said statue. Danny has a short fuse and thinks babysitting art is beneath him, much preferring a good scrap. The two pairs meet in the dumbest way possible, over a fish cake. Danny thinks Zatch wants trouble and starts a brawl, but they soon realize the real danger is armed thieves storming the place to steal the statue. Here we discover Danny's absurd power, but Guy is the Wolverine of this universe. He takes machine gun fire, turns into a human pincushion, and Goldo's spell heals him instantly. It's immortality via magic. But things get complicated when the thugs try to escape and cause an accident. Danny holds up a massive concrete pipe to save the statue, but his book gets stuck in a car about to explode. In a sacrifice play straight out of a 90s action movie, Danny tells Zatch to destroy the obstacle with his lightning, knowing it will burn his book too. Kyo obeys through tears. Danny completes the mission, saves the art, and disappears like a hero, finally earning the full respect of his partner, who calls him son, in the saddest farewell of the week.
You're my son, Danny. You're my son. Your son?
Tia wakes up incredibly hyped because today is double date day at the amusement park, but Kyo, being Kyo, prefers to sleep in and wakes up in a panic thinking he's late. On the street, a classic anime misunderstanding occurs. His school friends see Kyo mention he's going out with Megumi and think the nerd has become a celebrity lady killer when he's actually just hanging out with Zatch and Tia. Envy reigns, but Kyo loses the crowd with a lame excuse. While waiting for the meeting time, Megumi and Tia decide to do some shopping. That's when the plot turns into the princess and the pauper. A princess named Marie, who is a dead ringer for Megumi, appears while fleeing royal boredom. They swap clothes so Marie can enjoy a day as a commoner, but obviously things go south. An assassin is on the princess's tail and ends up chasing Megumi by mistake. The confusion escalates quickly. The butler panics. Tia realizes the switch, and everyone is on the run. When the assassin corners Megumi thinking she's the princess, the real Marie appears and tries to play the martyr for royal pride. Tia has no patience for monarchical drama, uses her shields to tank the bullets, and knocks the assassin flat. In the end, Marie learns that asking for help isn't a weakness, and the group finally sprints for the train because they are super late for the park. Arriving at the park, the group discovers that the biggest enemy of the day isn't an ancient demon, but the height requirement for the roller coaster. Zatch is barred for being too short and throws a tantrum, but the drama ends quickly when Kyo realizes they aren't alone. Purio and Zoberon, two Momoto who look like they escaped a horror circus, are on the South Pole ride. They used to be enemies but decided to become a villainous dynamic duo. They spot Zatch and the fight is on. Kyo, always the strategist, lures the villains to an empty pool to avoid collateral damage. The problem is the enemy's combo is annoying. One spits paralyzing slime and the other launches slow but destructive energy orbs. Zatch gets caught in the slime and freezes up like lag in the middle of a ranked match. Kyo has to scramble, carrying Zatch on his back while dodging explosions. The situation turns critical when the slime starts to harden completely. With no offensive options and cornered, Kyo has a stroke of genius. He tells Zatch to fire a Zocker into the sky like an electrical bat signal. The plan works perfectly. Tia and Megumi arrive flying with Masei shield, blocking the final blow and leveling the playing field.
Maybe we should even the odds.
Huh? Master Shield!
Now it's 2-on-2. The brawl at the park turns into general chaos. Megumi, tired of just being the pretty pop idol, lands a judo throw on Lupa, while Tia holds the defense. On the villain's side, a domestic dispute breaks out mid-fight. Hai is too dim-witted and starts drawing faces on his own stomach instead of focusing on the combat, leaving his partner absolutely livid. With Zatch still half frozen by the paralyzing venom, he and Tia decide to form the most improvised Megazord in history. Zatch climbs onto her back, literally backpacking his partner, and they combine defense and offense. While the villains argue about their relationship, the heroes unleash a Saisu and Zocker combo. The result is smoke and a burned book. Zoberon is eliminated and sent back to the Momoto world. Purio and Lupa, realizing they're toast, drop a smokescreen and tuck tail. With victory secured, the day ends the way it began: shopping, rides, and food. Tia tries to be sweet and prepares a special lunch for Zatch in a tsundere romance vibe. But Zatch, with the sensitivity of a doorknob, says he'd rather eat raw fish than her cooking. The episode ends with Tia strangling the kid on the carousel.
You're gonna be eating yellowtail through a straw when I'm through with you.
The day starts with Zatch in a fisherman mood, and by pure luck, he fishes a mirror fragment out of the sea. Kyo, ever the skeptic, thinks it's trash, but Zatch treats it like Gollum's precious. To keep the kid from losing the treasure, Kyo convinces him to store the item inside Vulcan 300, the cardboard robot that serves as a high-security vault. On the way to school, Susie mentions a new student, and guess what? The newcomer, Shion, is the definition of charm, making a big entrance and even bringing a cat, Naja, to class. The teacher tries to ban the animal, but the class points out that Kyo brings a demon, and the teacher himself brings his wife, so the cat stays. Shion glues herself to Kyo and Zatch after school, which leaves Susie fuming with jealousy like a telenovela lead. But the peace is short-lived. A stalker who was on their tail appears demanding the mirror. He pulls out a book and reveals his Momoto partner, cut and paste. The name is ridiculous, like a third-grade art project, and so are the powers, scissors and glue. The creature cuts the air to create paper soldiers like assassin origami. Kyo almost becomes a collage when the enemy uses super glue to pin him to the floor. But Kyo is the brains of the duo. He uses Jikerdor, turning the enemy into a living magnet. Result? The villain's own final metal attack loops back and hits him dead center.
This is goodbye.
The stalker flees, but Shion, who saw everything, stares at the mirror with a look that promises nothing good. The day begins with Shion in a heavy moral dilemma, determined to steal Zatch's mirror. She shows up at Kyo's house with the "let's walk to school together" routine, but her intention is clear: swipe the protagonist's backpack. Kyo, who wasn't born yesterday, realizes she's interested in the secret item. At school, Shion tries to pull an Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible and steals what she thinks is the mirror from Kyo's bag, but she ends up grabbing Zatch's lunch. Total fail. Running out of options, Shion takes Zatch to an isolated park. When the kid refuses to hand over the mirror, the mask falls. Shion reveals her pink book, and the cute cat Naja transforms into a bizarre monster that fires needles. Kyo arrives just in time to block the attack, and the two enter combat mode, but then comes the drama. Shion breaks down and tells the typical tragic backstory. She lost her parents, and Naja was the one who saved her from loneliness. She believes that by gathering the mirrors, she can wish to stay with the cat forever, preventing him from vanishing at the end of the battle. Zatch, being soft-hearted, decides to trust her and hands over the fragment willingly, leaving the girl in shock at such kindness. The problem is that, from afar, the villain Grisor and Dr. Hakase watch it all with a malicious grin. That talk about granting wishes is pure fake news. The real plan is to gather the pieces to rule the world, and Shion fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Sunday is for barbecues, but not for this crowd. Kyo, Zatch, Shion, and the demon cat take a train to visit Grisor, who has the final piece of the mirror. They arrive at a crumbling apartment where Dr. Hakase lives, a physics genius who lives in filth, like a B-movie mad scientist. Grisor, who reveals himself to be a tiny Momoto, tells a massive tall tale. He says the magic mirror allows participants to forfeit the battle without losing their book. It's basically the rage quit button everyone wanted. To fix the mirror, they have to go to some ancient ruins, which look like cardboard sets, and perform a ritual. And the ritual is the most humiliating thing possible, a ridiculous dance to a Parco Folgora style song. Kyo nearly dies of embarrassment, but does it for Shion's sake. When the pieces come together and the mirror glows, Grisor grabs the complete item and escapes through a trapdoor, while Hakase demolishes the fake ruins on top of the heroes. Crawling out of the rubble, the gang pursues the little guy. Kyo tries a Zocker, but Hakase, hiding, uses technology to simulate magic and release a smokescreen, escaping like an 80s cartoon villain. The trap is sprung, the mirror is stolen, and Shion realizes the hard way that she was used the entire time. Now it's time to chase down the pair of cheaters. The hunt has turned into an insane insane level of Temple Run. Kyo and Zatch chase the goblin Greasaur and the mad scientist Dr. Hakase, dodging traps that look like they came straight out of a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner cartoon. Hakase even tries to crush them by knocking over a tree, but Shion steps up and the cat Nia turns giant to save the day. When they finally corner the villains against a mountain, Hakase activates the ultimate cheat code, the magic mirror. The reflection transforms little Greasaur into a beefed up version. The beast becomes so strong he carries the scientist in his palm and leaps through the forest like the Hulk. Not satisfied with the size, Hakase uses a Figar spell boosted by the mirror, creating a flamethrower worthy of a war movie that burns down the entire forest. In the chaos, Mia tries to play the hero to protect Shion, but the power gap is absurd. The moment turns into total drama when Shion's book is hit and catches fire. A painful Avengers Infinity War style farewell follows, and the kitty begins to vanish into particles of light, leaving the girl devastated. The villains, of course, laugh in the face of danger. With no time for mourning, the fight restarts with a magma spell that turns the area into a deadly game of the floor is lava, surrounding Kyo and Zatch in a ring of fire with no way out. Trapped in the ring of fire, Zatch and Kyo decide the best defense is a good offense, but Greasaur has God mode activated by the mirror, tanking all of Zatch's zaps and firing back magma spells that make Dante's Peak look like a matchstick. Mid-fight, Hakase decides to do the classic villain monologue, explaining he stole the mirror because Greasaur was too weak, basically a real-life pay-to-win, to try and rule the demon world. While Kyo and Zatch give the motivational shonen speech about true power coming from friendship and courage, Shion decides to stop being a spectator. She channels an NFL linebacker and pulls a surprise tackle on the scientist, making him drop the mirror. It's the critical moment. The glass cracks, and the villain's infinite battery starts to leak. Hakase tries one last desperate move, transforming Greasaur into a Godzilla-sized monster. Kyo and Zatch respond with everything, summoning the electric dragon Baozakurda. The clash of powers is insane, but with the mirror damaged, the dragon swallows the villain and deletes him from the server.
This is impossible!
As the dust settles, Shion releases Nia's ribbon into the wind in a Forrest Gump moment, overcoming her grief and promising to be stronger. The next day, she moves away, leaving the school and her friends behind, but now with her head held high. Zatch is living his own horror movie, having nightmares about Naomi, the girl who makes Regina George from Mean Girls look like a saint, and the nightmare is real. While Kyo takes the day off to go to the zoo with Susie and Ponygon, Zatch stays behind in the neighborhood being tortured by the blonde girl and totally rigged competitions. She even runs him over with a pedal car like it's GTA. At the zoo, the situation turns into a comedy of errors when Susie and Ponygon walk into a lion's cage thinking they're in the VIP area. Total Jumanji vibes, not realizing the beast had already escaped. Parallel to this, Zatch discovers that Naomi fell down a cliff trying to catch a lizard. Overcoming his bullying trauma, the electric boy goes down to save the brat, but the surprise is doubled. The escaped lion appears on the cliff. Zatch freezes in fear, and Naomi activates Spider-Woman mode, climbing the mountain while carrying him and saving the day. In the end, a TV crew shows up to cover the story. Although Naomi tries to steal the spotlight by acting like a hero, Zatch channels his inner Dr. Dolittle, pulls a thorn from the lion's paw, and becomes the star of the report. Naomi, of course, doesn't accept losing the spotlight and throws a lizard in his face, keeping the cycle of chaos eternal.
Naomi is the Lizard Queen! Naomi is the Lizard Queen! It's true! It's true!
The episode starts with a heavy atmosphere in Lee-Ann's family. You know that difficult talk with your dad? Multiply it by 1,000, because the old man is a Hong Kong triad boss and decided to ship her demon boyfriend One-Ray far away. She tries to settle it with brute force, but gets shut down. Meanwhile, in Japan, Kyo is spacing out and ends up having his red book stolen by Lee-Ann herself. When they finally catch the thief, they discover it wasn't out of malice. It's a rescue mission. Lee-Ann needs to save One-Ray, living out a Romeo and Juliet romance, but with way more kung fu and magic powers. Her father forbade the relationship because, well, the son-in-law is a fighting demon. But before they can board, a fight breaks out at the airport where Kyo and Zatch have to save the girl from her father's henchmen, firing off a Zacher to ensure their check-in. The trio sets off for the mobster's island fortress. It's like infiltrating a 007 villain's base. They face traps, giant logs, and guards armed to the teeth. Things get ugly when the elevator breaks, but Leanne activates Lara Croft mode and scales a cliff with her bare hands, proving the power of love gives a massive stamina buff. Zatch prevents her from falling, and when they reach the top ready for the reunion hug, they run into Zabaz and Galliant, a pair of enemies who had already cleared the area to snatch One Ray. The rescue party has turned into an ambush. The top of the island has become an MMA octagon. Zabaz and Galliant aren't playing around, attacking from the air and spinning like Sonic, bruising Kyo and Zatch. While the brawl rages on, Leanne runs to free One Ray, but he gives the cliche anime "I hate you, go away" speech to try and protect the girl. Leanne calls his bluff immediately and refuses to leave the line of fire. Kyo and Zatch, despite taking a beating, use Talk no Jutsu, reminding One Ray that a true king doesn't run away. He protects those he loves. The speech works. One Ray breaks his chains through sheer physical strength and joins the fray. The couple's synergy is perfect. Leanne handles the spells while One Ray displays movie-quality kung fu, dodging blows as if he's in the Matrix. The villain Zabaz tries to escape by scaling the cliff, but takes an aerial combo and falls right into the protagonist's sights.
What's he doing?
Zabas!
Kyo and Zatch seize the chance to debut Zakurga, a concentrated laser-like beam that pierces the enemy's defense and sends the duo packing, and their book to the flames. In the end, the final boss appears, Leanne's father. But seeing that One Ray has the courage to face even a sword to protect his daughter, the old man decides to play the cruel father-in-law, and lets them take a boat to escape. The episode ends with the couple sailing into the sunset, free, in love, and owing Kyo and Zatch a huge one. Zatch thinks he hit the jackpot winning a trip to the hot springs after losing a raffle, but the poor kid has no idea he fell for a scam. The benefactor is Garza, a hunter who, along with his Momoto partner Barancha, lures people into the woods in a total predator vibe. They destroy the bridge, isolate the duo, and start a sadistic game of cat and mouse, sniping from afar and using invisibility to wear Kyo down mentally and physically. The situation becomes critical. Kyo faints from exhaustion, and the enemy is invisible and armored. It looks like game over, but Kyo had a stinky plan up his sleeve. Literally, they use ginkgo nuts, which have an unbearable smell, to mark the enemy. The plan works. Zatch follows the foul trail and manages to locate Barancha even while she's invisible, pummeling her. Garza is shocked to see his perfect strategy go down the drain. Desperate and cornered in the same spot where they destroyed the bridge, the hunters try to tank the damage using full magic armor. Terrible idea. Kyo wakes up just to spit fire, summoning the Bao Zakerga. The electric dragon is so imposing that the duo chooses to throw themselves off the cliff into the river below rather than face the hit kill.
In our hearts!
Kyo and Zatch win by endurance and stench, and can finally head home after this stressful vacation. In Italy, Conchome proves that gluttony is humanity's greatest enemy. While Fulgora signs autographs, the Momoto sees candy in a truck, hops in to grab it, and gets accidentally kidnapped. It's like a classic cartoon scene, except he ends up at a circus in the middle of nowhere. There, he becomes the star attraction, not for talent, but for being a klutz on the level of the Three Stooges. Midway through this random tour, he meets Rushka, an orphan girl who tends sheep and lives with her guardian, Lily. Kanchome, meaty as ever, decides to adopt the girl as his little sister. Everything is sweet and pastoral until a duo show up, a pair of thieves who look like they crawled out of a cheap RPG complete with a demonic dragon. They want the sheep for dinner. Kanchome tries to play the hero by throwing newspapers at them, but without his book and Fulgore, he's completely useless. He flees and cries, but seeing Rushka's sadness, he decides he needs to man up. Meanwhile, in Japan, an episode of The Real Housewives breaks out at the park. Tia and Naomi meet, and the tension is so high that even Zatch and Ponygon are terrified. Back in Italy, Fulgore finds his lost partner, and together they head to the villain's hideout to get the flock back in a total revenge mood. The heat is on in the thieves' cave. Kanchome uses Puruk to turn into a buff minotaur, only to discover the hard way that the magic is purely cosmetic. He's still weak. The enemy calls the bluff and lets the fire fly. Luckily, Kanchome trained at the circus and starts dodging attacks Matrix or Cirque du Soleil style. After trying to use his shrunken size for a childish prank, pulling down the villain's pants. Really, things get serious. Rushka tries to intervene and almost becomes barbecue, which awakens a new power in Fulgora's book, Dikaporuk. Kanchome turns into a colossal giant, Godzilla style. The enemies panic and unleash their ultimate attack, but it passes right through the giant without doing a thing. Plot twist, it's all an illusion, like Mysterio from Spider-Man. The real Kanchoma was right there the whole time, only the projection was giant. With the villains wasting all their mana on the hologram, Fulgore takes the chance, steals their book, and tosses it into the campfire.
Hey, the smoke one!
Bago vanishes, and the sheep are saved. The next day, there's an emotional farewell. Kanchome does a little balancing act to prove he's evolved, and Rushka is happy. But as the saying goes, poor man's joy doesn't last long. While trying to catch a boat home, Kanchome sees Candy on a ship, sneaks in, and the ship sets sail. Destination? The South Pole. The dummy is going to see penguins instead of going home. Zatch wakes up knocked out with a fever, but like a stubborn kid, he follows Kyo to school, hiding with Ponygon. The result is absolute chaos. Kyo tries to tie them up. Ponygon attacks him, and a law and order style trial breaks out in the classroom where the genius is unjustly condemned.
We find Kyo guilty.
But what kind of kangaroo court is this? I'll be in front!
But the comedy ends abruptly when Apollo reappears. He returns dressed like a CEO, total Bruce Wayne vibes, but without ROPS. The mood is heavy. Apollo reveals he encountered a Momoto who looks exactly like Zatch, named Zeno. However, this evil twin is sadistic and loathes weakness. In a flashback, we see Apollo and ROPS being humiliated by Zeno and his partner Dufort. This Dufort is broken. He has a cheat code ability to predict everything, dodging attacks without breaking a sweat and telling Zeno exactly where to fire. ROPS is destroyed without mercy, leaving Apollo alone and traumatized. The story is heavy and serves as a warning. There are people much stronger and crueler in this game. Kyo promises to avenge his friend. Meanwhile, Zatch has nightmares about this malignant doppelganger and wakes up cured of his fever, but with that sinking feeling that the final boss has just been introduced. Apollo leaves to run his multinational corporation, leaving the motivation for revenge in the air. Zatch starts the day with the vibe of any kid on a Saturday morning, glued to the TV watching Praying Mantis Joe, a low-budget Power Ranger-style hero. He desperately wants to see the live show at the mall, but Kyo, being the grumpy big brother, tells him to go alone. Zatch ends up going with Ponygon, who attempts a ridiculous disguise that wouldn't even fool Clark Kent. On the way, they run into Susie and the professor's wife, who is on a Black Friday-style mission to buy useless things on sale. The group arrives at the mall with high expectations, but reality hits hard. It's that what I ordered online versus what arrived meme. Susie's doll is a knockoff. The professor's wife's miracle knife snaps on the very first cut, and Ponygon discovers the hard way that he hates carrots. To make matters worse, Zatch sees the backstage area and discovers his hero is a depressed guy being bullied by his colleagues. Things get serious when the manager reveals himself as a con artist who refuses refunds, protected by a giant bodyguard. The actor playing Joe tries to play the hero but takes a beating. That's when true teamwork kicks in. Susie throws a mop, Mistress Takamine hurls a pumpkin, and through a stroke of luck and questionable physics, they use Joe himself as a projectile to take down the brute. In the end, the actor thanks Zatch for rekindling his inner fire, and Zatch returns home ignoring Kyo's cynicism, proving that heroes are real if you believe hard enough. We cut to Russia, where we meet Barry, a Momoto with a classic shonen villain vibe. He's bored because he wins every fight way too easily, much like Saitama from One Punch Man. His partner, Gustav, mentions a tough kid named Zatch, so they decide to head to Japan in search of a real challenge. Upon arriving, Barry makes the classic blunder of mistaking Naomi for Zatch, proving that Batgirl is terrifying even to demons. When Barry finally finds the real Zatch, he grabs the kid by the head and lays down the gauntlet. Zatch is frozen with fear. Feeling the enemy's overwhelming pressure, Kyo has to go into sports movie motivational coach mode to get Zatch to focus. They head to an abandoned factory, the standard setting for anime brawls, where Barry clears the area by swatting away some thugs like they're flies. The fight begins, and the power gap is terrifying. Barry is a tank. He takes a Zakurga head on and doesn't even blink. While Zatch takes a beating, Kyo proves he has the highest IQ in the series, using the battle as a distraction to save some girls trapped in the building. Barry is irritated by their altruism, viewing it as weakness, and begins to demolish the structure. Despite taking a monumental thrashing and being thrown through walls, Zatch keeps getting back up, leaving the villain confused by such sheer determination. The one-sided beatdown continues. Barry doesn't just tank the attacks, he starts deflecting spells with his bare hands, completely humiliating the main duo. Kyo and Zatch try to flee to buy time, but Barry and Gustav pursue them with the speed of an action movie. With nowhere left to run, Kyo decides to bet everything on their finisher, the Bauza Kerga. Usually this is the moment the heroes clinch the win, but Barry holds his ground and stays standing. Despair sets in. Kyo is paralyzed by exhaustion, and Barry prepares the final blow to burn their book. But then something bizarre happens. Zatch glares at Barry with such intensity and a resolve to become a kind king that the villain simply freezes. It's as if Zatch's piercing gaze paralyzed the guy. Kyo, in a final insane effort, tries to drop the factory roof on them using a forklift, but the machine fails. Gustav, noticing his partner's existential dilemma, starts a therapy session amidst the rubble. He makes Barry realize that fighting without a goal is empty. Barry admits he wants to be a strong king who loses to no one, finally finding his true motivation. Instead of finishing the job, he decides to spare Zatch and Kyo, saying he'll wait for them to get stronger for a worthy rematch. They leave, leaving our heroes alive but weeping in frustration because they know that technically they lost badly and only survived out of mercy. While Zatch and Kyo are still licking their wounds from the beating Barry gave them, the mood is heavy. The one who really feels the blow, though, is Ponygon. The little horse realizes that, unlike everyone else, he's the only member of the crew who does nothing useful during a fight because he lacks a human partner. Deciding to change that, he sets out into the world with his book under his arm, stopping random people on the street like those guys trying to sell you magazine subscriptions at the mall. Nobody pays the poor guy any mind until he needs Doronma. The guy has a horse face so bizarre he looks like BoJack Horseman's distant cousin. Doronma looks at the book, acts like he understands everything, and invites the gang to his place. His pitch is that they are a modern version of Santa Claus, distributing gifts to those in need. Innocent as he is, Ponygon falls for the ruse and joins a stealth mission. However, the gift giving turns out to be robbing jewelry stores and invading mansions. Mission Impossible style, but clumsier. When the police surround them, the truth comes out. Doronma isn't a battle partner. He's just a 2-bit thief, and he hadn't read a single spell. The guy was just hypnotized by a crushed fly on the page of the book.
Something. Here. A poor fly got squished. Here, take
Ponygon is back to square one. Sad, but at least he didn't get arrested as an accomplice. Shifting focus to the most dangerous gothic duo in the series, Brago and Sherry are on their usual patrol when they encounter a drama straight out of The Revenant. A giant bear attacks an old man and his grandson Jeff. The beast had already dispatched the boy's parents before and now wants to finish the job. But the bear's attack lasts less than a reality TV star's career, as Brago defeats the creature without breaking a sweat. The problem is, the kid Jeff is livid. He wanted his Batman-style revenge and feels Brago stole his moment. But the family's day is far from over. Some villainous developers show up with excavators to tear down their house. Jeff tries to be the hero and fight the henchman barehanded, but gets beaten up. Brago, tired of watching, steps in and crushes an excavator like a soda can. The villains trigger Plan B and blow up the mountain to cause an avalanche and bury everything. That's when Sherry shows that the level of the game has shifted. She unlocks Dioga Gravidon, a spell so absurd it stops the avalanche in its tracks. The duo leaves everyone alive, reminding us why they are the elite of this tournament. Back to the daily grind, Kyo decides to channel his inner Nicolas Cage from National Treasure. He finds one of those mysterious stone tablets in a shop and takes it home to study. Zatch and Tia try to help with the testing, but their scientific method basically involves screaming and Tia trying to smash the relic with a sledgehammer. Kyo, predictably, kicks the chaos out of his room. While the protagonist team goes to train in the backyard to avoid falling behind in future fights, the mystery plot shifts into high gear. An odd new Mamoto is on a plane heading to Japan, but the real danger is lurking in the shadows. During the night, a silhouette breaks into Kyo's room and steals the stone right from under his nose. And that's not all. Over in England, Kyo's father is also robbed. Someone is collecting these stones like they're infinity stones. We cut to to a secret hideout where a masked Mamoto admires his collection of stolen tablets, making it clear that a much larger and more dangerous story arc has just begun. Zatch and Kyo are in that classic RPG moment where they need to grind for XP so they don't get humiliated by the next boss. But their training is interrupted by Dr. Riddles and his partner Kido, a Mamoto, who looks like he stepped out of an old school cartoon. Riddles, cosplaying as Batman's the Riddler, throws a mental challenge at Kyo before disappearing. Later, the Doctor returns wanting a real fight. The deal is simple. If Kyo wins, Riddles releases the secret instruction manual for the book. The battle starts and the main duo is getting thrashed, but Riddles keeps dropping hints mid-fight like an unskippable video game tutorial. Kyo finally connects the dots and perceives the matrix of it all. The spells aren't just pretty words, they are direct manifestations of Zatch's emotional power. Kyo delivers a motivational speech worthy of a halftime locker room, asking Zatch to believe in himself. The adrenaline hits, the book glows, and they unlock the 6th skill on their talent tree, Rousaruk. Zatch is glowing like a Christmas tree with Rousaruk activated. But no one knows what it does. Kyo thinks it's some kind of touch-based electric power, but Zatch charges at Kido and nothing happens. The only thing electric is the tension. In fact, they discover, after Kyo almost gets toasted, that this spell is a pure stat buff. Zatch gains super strength, speed, and defense, basically becoming a pint-sized Hulk, but without the ability to fire lightning from his mouth. Dr. Riddles decides to pull out all the stops, and Kido uses a technique, creating several clones of himself. At first, it's chaos, but now that Zatch is powered up, he clears the clones with raw punches. When Kido tries to fire his strongest magic, Zatch doesn't just defend. He reflects the hit and blasts the little Mamoto into space like Team Rocket blasting off again. Riddles, losing his cool, accepts defeat and reveals that it was all a test. He explains the mechanics of the game. Fighting gives XP, but what unlocks new power is emotional growth. Before leaving, he drops a sinister teaser about evil beings collecting ancient stones, making it clear that the next arc will be a trial by fire. Meanwhile, in a cave that looks like a Bond villain's lair, Zophis and Coco are playing Jurassic Park, using a strange light to resurrect 1,000-year-old Mamoto from stone tablets. On the other side of the map, Brago and Sherry continue to sweep the server, destroying a random team with the ease of someone playing on very easy mode, just to remind us they are the elite. Back with the comedy core, Susie shows up at Kyo's house acting like a lobotomized zombie. She delivers an invitation to a party at an abandoned mansion and passes out. Kyo and Zatch go there, and the vibe is total eyes wide shut, with strange people and eerie music. The host is Zophis, who calls himself Lord, and has the vibe of a toxic boss who thinks he owns his employees. He offers an alliance. Join me and gain armies of mind-controlled slaves. Zophis treats the revived Mamoto like disposable NPCs, which makes Zatch furious. The protagonist refuses the offer and attacks.
So much for our plans. So it seems.
Zatch manages to pull a talk no jutsu on one of the controlled Mamoto, freeing his mind before destroying his book to end his suffering. Zophis, seeing the talk didn't work, tries to bring the mansion down on them, but Zatch and Kyo use Baozakerga to blast through the roof and escape the rubble. The war against the Lord has officially been declared. At school, the atmosphere is like the Olympics, but instead of gold medals, everyone is competing for cafeteria food. Kyo and his rival Yamanaka turn PE class into a gladiator pit over a piece of steak and a strawberry cake. Kyo wins the food, but the victory is short-lived because the real trouble is arriving in town. We meet Penny, a Mamoto who acts like a psycho ex-girlfriend from a thriller movie. She destroys a delivery truck just because she smelled the cake she wanted, proving that anger management isn't her strong suit. The girl's goal is to find Zatch, whom she swears is the love of her life. The encounter happens, but the romantic comedy script turns into a drama fast. Penny asks if Zatch remembers their love, and our protagonist, who lost his memory at the start of the series, gives a sincere, "Who are you?" Penny's reaction is worthy of the Dark Phoenix. She snaps, decides, if I can't have him, no one can, and starts attacking. The chase leads to the school pool, where Zatch and Kyo are at a total disadvantage against the vengeful blonde's water spells. The relationship talk between Zatch and Penny continues mid-brawl. She tries some basic emotional blackmail. If Zatch apologizes, she'll stop trying to kill him. Kyo, being the brains of the duo, tells Zatch to just apologize already. He does, but then Penny drops the trap question. The result? She attacks again with the fury of 1,000 suns. Kyo tries to be strategic and uses Rauzaruk to give Zatch a physical buff, hoping to get close for a finisher. The problem is they discover the hard way that it's impossible to cast attack spells while the buff is active. It's like trying to use 2 ultimates at the same time in a video game. The system crashes. Penny takes advantage of the opening and summons a giant water dragon. Kyo corrects the mistake and launches Bowserkerga, creating a kaiju battle in the schoolyard. Zatch's dragon wins, but before they can catch their breath, a frog Momodo named Bianco appears. The creature recruits Penny for the villain's team, revealing they are gathering a crew to wipe the mat. Penny flees, promising to return stronger, now allied with the mysterious Lord Vane and his army of ancient Momodo, while Penny and the League of Evil prepare with an army of zombie Momodo revived from stone tablets. The world outside is turning to chaos. We even see Baransha, that tough Momodo who nearly finished Zatch earlier, being surrounded and attacked by these new enemies, showing that no one is safe and the power level has drastically spiked. But Kyo and Zatch don't know any of this yet. Their day looks like an episode of Sesame Street. Zatch forces Kyo to play train around the park, and soon the whole gang joins in for an epic game of kick the can. It's that classic moment of calm before the storm, complete with a picnic and sentimental speeches about how these happy days should last forever. Obviously, anime protagonist happiness lasts about 15 minutes. Just as Kyo thinks about how perfect everything is, reality knocks on the door, or rather, drops from the sky.
I told you I'd be back! I'm back for you!
Penny returns, and this time, she's not alone. She brought the whole squad of ancient Momodo with her. The picnic is over, and the war against Zophis' army has officially begun. The peace in the park lasts less than a paycheck at the end of the month. She introduces 3 new ancient Momodo, Erujo, Dogmos, and Borubora. The vibe shifts instantly, and Zatch and Kyo have to haul tail out of there to avoid being turned into pulp in the middle of the city. They try to flee to an isolated spot, but the Injustice League gives no quarter and corners the duo. Penny, giving the classic villain monologue, reveals the secret. These Momodo were those stone tablets that had become paperweights at Kyo's house. They were trapped for 1,000 years and are now full of hate, revived by the mysterious Lord Vane. The brawl begins, and not even Rashield can hold the line. Kyo notices something bizarre. The human partners of these Momodo look like extras from The Walking Dead. They have no emotion, feel no fear, and act like robots. When things get dire and Kyo gets hurt, they decide to use Bowserkerga, the nuke in their arsenal. But, plot twist, the 3 enemies combine their attacks and cancel out the lightning dragon like it's nothing.
Oh no! The Bowserkerga!
With Kyo on the ground and Zatch pinned, Penny explains the darkest part. Lord Vane, in a total get-out move, manipulated the minds of these humans to sync with the books, erasing their personalities. This makes our protagonist furious. They try one last desperate attack but fail. It seems like the end of the road, until suddenly a Tsuyoshi shield appears. Tia and Megumi arrive with a flying kick to save the day. With the arrival of the cavalry, or rather, Tia and Megumi, the battle stops being a one-sided massacre. They explain that Dr. Riddles, the Sherlock Holmes of this universe, sent the fight's location via GPS. Without wasting time on small talk, Tia debuts her new toy, Diga la Tsuyoshi. Unlike the normal shield, this one works like a reverse card in Uno. It traps the enemy with their own attack and reflects the damage back at them. Borubora learns this the hard way and has his book destroyed. But Kyo is still more broken than an iPhone screen without a protector. That's when Tia pulls out a giant pink sword called Saifogio. Zatch panics, thinking she's going to finish off his friend, but relax. It's just a magic medkit. The sword heals Kyo and recharges his energy instantly. Now with the team buffed and HP full, they go on the counterattack. The strategy is simple and brutal. Tia holds the defense to the limit, and when the shield breaks, Zatch releases Bowserkerga combined with Tia's trap. Penny, seeing the tables have turned, flies off with her tail between her legs, promising revenge. The post-fight is heavy. The controlled humans wake up with no memory, like a movie-style hangover, not knowing how they ended up in Japan. One of them has a broken birthday present for his daughter, which makes Kyo furious at Lord Vane's cruelty. But it's not all loss. They find a tile piece in one of the guy's pockets, an Indiana Jones-style clue to find the villain's ruins. Meanwhile, in Africa, Zophis, the Lord, sends Bianco to bring chaos to Brago and Sherry. We switch scenes to the African savannah, where Brago and Sherry are about to face Bianco's team, but the frog brought heavy backup. The Silent Rulers, a trio that looks like a dangerous gothic boy band. Brago, with his usual "I eat barbed wire for breakfast" swagger, thinks it'll be easy, but the trio is coordinated. Alm and Bianco watch while Faust and the others begin the massacre. They use an air pressure and sound tactic that leaves Brago deaf and immobilized, trapped in a dome of silence where he's an easy target. It's that tense moment where the team's tank is taking heavy damage. Sherry, proving she's not just some socialite, runs into the danger zone. Brago protects her from a mortal blow, and together they decide they're done playing. They release Dioga Gravidon, which is basically a portable black hole, wiping the trio off the map in one hit.
What's going on?
Bianco flees in despair because he knows he's next. In the end, Sherry connects the dots. The manipulated humans, the cruelty, the fighting style. She realizes that Lord Vane is just a stage name for Zophis, the same guy who brainwashed Coco. In the ruins, Zophis takes off his mask and assumes his real identity, ready for the next phase of this sick game. Meanwhile, back home, Kyo and company start investigating the mysterious stone to find the villain's address. CSI, Mamoto style, in the South Pole, and no, it's not a Penguin documentary. Kanchime is there freezing until Dr. Riddles and Kido show up. Shortly after, Fulgore arrives on an icebreaker, looking like a human popsicle. Meanwhile, Kyo is pulling all-nighters in Japan, like a student during finals week, trying to decode the mysterious stone. Ponygon goes on a mission to find his partner, but Megumi steals the show. She's living a drama worthy of Mean Girls, being a famous idol. She's bullied by envious girls at school, but the girl stays focused, deciding she needs a break to save the world. On the street, a dog steals Ponygon's book. A guy named Kafka Sunbeam recovers the book, and there's a classic almost meeting rom-com moment, but they don't recognize each other as partners. At home, Kyo's friends show up with useless class notes and tickets to Megumi's concert just to annoy him, but this helps Kyo have a breakthrough. He receives a letter from Dr. Riddles, which basically says, "I already knew the answer ages ago, sucker." The old man is already in South America, at the De Volo ruins. Kyo is pissed, but grateful. The episode closes with Megumi's concert, where she announces her hiatus to the crowd, including the bullies, who instantly became fans. She exits the stage ready for war. The squad is gathered on Apollo's private jet, Avengers style, heading for the final mission. They arrive in South America and take a boat into the jungle. In the ruins, Zophis and Coco are bored, waiting for the chaos to begin. Kyo's group tries to be stealthy, but Kyo fires a Zocker into a suspicious bush and hits Kanchome and Fulgora. Yep, total friendly fire.
Now! Gotta shoot!
Kanchome explains that Dr. Riddles called in the B team to help destroy the ancient Mamoto's hewing device. Tia, of course, takes the chance to mock Kanchome, reminding him he's more cowardly than Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. They enter the ruins, which are a Legend of Zelda-level labyrinth. Suddenly, the wall explodes, and the enemies Gaelios and Alm appear. Kyo comes up with a risky plan. Use Kanchome and Fulgore as bait, and it actually works. Kanchome uses his wacky transformations, turning into a wheel and a hook, and creates a fake wall, Wile E. Coyote style, leading the enemies into a trap. Everyone celebrates the masterstroke, thinking they've cleared the area, but the joy is short-lived. A giant, never-before-seen Mamoto Guns spawns right behind Kanchome and Fulgore. The scare is real, and the episode cuts on that tense cliffhanger. Chaos is unleashed. Kanchome becomes the sacrificial lamb and tells the main team to go ahead, staying behind with Fulgore and Ponygon to deal with the giant Gons. Meanwhile, Zatch, Kyo, Tia, and Megumi face the duo Alm and Gaelios. Alm is a chatterbox and gives a villain monologue saying their human partners are nothing but batteries with no will of their own. Total Matrix vibes. Zatch, being a softie, feels sorry about hitting them. Cut to the dark side of the Force. Brago and Sherry encounter another ancient Mamoto, Bamu. The fight lasts less than a TikTok video. Brago simply annihilates the enemy in one hit under Dr. Riddles' approving gaze, proving he's on another power level entirely. Back with the main group, the room starts filling with water. Kyo uses his head and tells the team to jump into a drainage hole, turning the battle into a deadly water slide. They escape, but Alm pursues. Kyo decides it's time to buff Zatch with Rousero. The kid becomes a beast, holds the enemies back and tosses them away. But then comes the surprise. Zatch uses his body to protect the enemy human from an attack by his own Mamoto partner. He refuses to hurt the batteries, leaving the villain confused by such nobility mid-brawl. Zatch's pacifist side is screaming loud. He refuses to attack with full force because he realizes the ancient Mamoto are victims, trapped in stone for 1,000 years. Kyo, the brains of the operation, realizes the best way to solve this isn't through punching, but by stealing the books from the hypnotized partners, Mission Impossible style. But since talk doesn't solve everything, Kyo buffs the Lightning Boy with Rauzaruk to tank the attacks. Meanwhile, Kanchome and Fulgore are living a Tom and Jerry episode against the giant Gons. After much running and screaming, Ponygon jumps on the monster's face to blind him, and Kanchome uses his best trick, turning into the floor. Yeah, exactly. He trips the controlled human, shrinks Ant-Man style with Koparuk, and sets the big guy's book on fire. One problem down. Back with Zatch, things heat up. Launches a colossal spell and Kyo counters with Bowserkurga. The powers cancel out in a classic shonen explosion, but it drains Kyo's energy. When Galios tries to exploit their weakness, Megumi shows she's the MVP of the match. While Tia holds the defense, the idol steals the books from both enemies on the sly. Before vanishing, drops a heavy spoiler. The moonlight in the tower recharges their energy, and the human partners have no free will. They are just NPCs forced to protect the books. The humans wake up confused, free from mind control, and are sent to Apollo to recover. But peace is short-lived because, in the villain's tower, Victorine decides to investigate the mess. The team takes a moment to breathe, drink water, and eat some melons Fulgore brought, because priorities, right? Kyo tries to map out the enemy base using Alm's tips, but the picnic is interrupted by the arrival of the most bizarre figure in the anime so far, Victorine and his partner, Mohican Ace. Victorine is pure insanity. He's pissed about being ignored, but calms down instantly at the sight of the melons. The guy is so addicted to the fruit that he starts singing and dancing, turning the battle into a Broadway musical.
Catch my heart, Berry Melon.
Berry melon.
Fulgore joins in and offers more melon, but Kyo, playing the strict dad, cuts the fun short. This leaves Victorine furious, and he fires a V-shaped laser that nearly levels the area. Realizing brute force won't work, the team tries to bribe the villain with more food. While he's dancing distracted, they tie him up. It seemed easy, but Mohican Ace uses a spell that turns Victorine's arms into bladed yo-yos and frees his partner. Victorine detaches his own head from his body, and it starts flying around, spinning and shooting everywhere. The problem is his aim is terrible, and he ends up hitting his own body. Kyo realizes that despite being a buffoon, his firepower is absurd, and the team's mana is almost zero. The fight is against a clown, but the damage is very real. Victorine's head is still flying around, which is a logistical nightmare for the team. Zatch hits the head with a Zakurga, forcing the villain to reassemble. Conchomas steps in, transformed into Victorine's body to confuse the enemy, and it works. The villain attacks his own true body, thinking it's the imposter. The guy is the king of friendly fire. Irritated, Victorine charges his ultimate attack, Shagur Imiston. Kyo tries to meet it head-on with Bowserkurga, but the lightning dragon loses the power struggle, and the team barely escapes. Now the situation is critical. They have virtually no energy left. Kyo comes up with a 4D chess plan. Megumi uses her last healing spell, Saifogio. Victorine thinks Kyo was healed and prepares to intercept the next bow. Kyo bluffs and fires the dragon at the ceiling. The villain bites the bait and attacks the ceiling, thinking he avoided an aerial strike, except the dragon was a transformed Kanchome, and the plot twist doesn't end there. Kanchome shifts forms again, turning into the spell book in Mohican Ace's hand while stealing the real book. By the time Victorine realizes it's over, defeated and about to vanish, he makes one last request worthy of a pop star, to sing his melon song one more time. The group lets him. After all, it's a classic. Meanwhile, Ponygon sniffs out something familiar. His book owner is close, but new enemies appear to crash the party. No sooner does the team breathe a sigh of relief from beating Victorine than new problems appear: Dalmos, a colossal ancient Momodo, and Layla. The situation is tense because the group is out of mana, like an RPG player after spending everything on the previous boss. Kyo tries to flee through a hole in the wall, but Dalmos enters relentless pursuit mode and starts spanning sand spells in an endless corridor. When all seems lost in a sandpit, Layla shocks everyone. Instead of attacking the heroes, she aims at the wall and opens an escape route. The girl is a double agent. She reveals she only attacks because her human partner, Albert, is under mind control, but she hates what Zolfus is doing. Kyo, realizing not everyone can escape, decides to play the action movie hero. He tells the rest of the group to run and stays behind to hold off the monster. Tia tries to protest, but Kyo hands Zatch's book to her for safekeeping, forcing the girl to leave. However, Ponygon refuses to abandon his friends. The little horse has more courage than many shonen protagonists. Kyo finally accepts his help. They have a moving moment of recognition, and they go on the offensive. But Dalmos is tough. He uses combat armor and a giant drill that would would turn anyone into Swiss cheese.
Then towards the beginners!
Layla tries to help, but her attacks are limited. She even goes as far as surrendering to try and save the boys. But Dalmos doesn't care about mercy and buries Kyo and Zatch in the sand. When the end seems certain, the plot twist arrives. Ponygon returns, and this time, he's not alone. His book owner has finally arrived for the rescue. Backup has arrived. Ponygon's partner is Kafka Sunbeam, a guy with a totally zen vibe who pulls out the book and casts the first spell, Shudoruk. Ponygon gains silver armor and turns into the Flash, saving Kyo and Zatch from the quicksand and rescuing the traitor Layla in the blink of an eye. There's a quick flashback explaining how this duo formed. Sunbeam found Ponygon with Dr. Riddles' help, but the little horse was terrified of fighting, shaking like a leaf. But, overcoming his fear to help his friends, he decided to face the war. Back in the present, the fight resumes. Ponygon is fast, but his attacks bounce off Dalmos' armor without leaving a scratch. The villain strikes back hard, and Sunbeam has to use street fighting tactics. He throws sand in Dalmos' face to blind the monster. Who knew a sand attack to the eye would work in a magic battle? Seeing his partner's determination, Sunbeam releases the next level, Ghost Shudoruk. Ponygon gains golden armor and a piercing horn that would make any rhino jealous. Their synergy is absurd. Sunbeam reads the enemy's movements and guides Ponygon as if he were playing a video game with a controller in his hand. They dodge Dalmos' blades and land a critical hit on the villain's back. Sunbeam, wasting no time, grabs the enemy's book and sets it ablaze with a lighter, deleting Dalmos from existence.
But not for long.
A major victory for Team Horse. The battle is over, and the team is absolutely trashed. Sunbeam collapses from exhaustion, proving that casting spells burns more calories than running a marathon. Albert, Layla's partner, brings out some glowing crystals that act just like a video game health potion, restoring everyone's stamina. He explains these stones are fragments of the Moonlight Stone, the power source keeping the ancient Mamoto alive and under Zulfus's thumb. Fearing he'll be turned back into stone, Layla decides to return to the villain's side, but not before dropping a crucial hint. The source of everything is in a distant tower. Meanwhile, back in the city, the rest of the group is cornered. Megumi, Tia, Folgore, and Kanchome find themselves surrounded by Bianco's Frog Squad aerial division. The onslaught is heavy, leveling the building they were in. Just when it looks like game over, in a dead-end alley, we get a total Avengers Assemble moment. One-Ray and Li-An burst onto the scene, wrecking shop with Kung Fu, followed quickly by Dr. Riddles and Little Keto blowing through the debris. The cavalry has officially arrived, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. In the chaos, a flying Mamoto snatches Tia and hauls her into the sky. Panicking as she reaches terminal altitude, Tia prepares to toss Zatch's book down to Megumi, thinking this is the end of the line. But before she does anything reckless, a familiar voice rings out. It's Zatch, riding a turbocharged Ponygon, flying, or rather leaping, into a cinematic mid-air rescue. Hang on tight, Tia! Zatch and Ponygon pull off a Mission Impossible style mid-air rescue. After catching Tia, Zatch pulls a high-octane acrobatic maneuver. Kyo recovers the book and blasts a Zakarga right into the enemy Mamoto's back. Sunbeam proves he's the ultimate support MVP, managing to break everyone's fall and saving the gang from becoming human pancakes. Peace is short-lived though, as Bianco the Frog decides to stop playing nice and orders a group attack. That's when Dr. Riddles takes point and summons the Majestic 12. They look like a budget version of the Avengers you'd buy off Wish, heroes who were clearly on vacation. Riddles turns the battlefield into a game show, asking who the intruder in the group is. Bianco flunks the quiz, and the Majestic 12 begins the punishment phase, using ridiculous powers that wouldn't scare a toddler. The only one who actually saves the day is Lady Susan, Big Boing, using a classic cartoon-style distraction so Riddles and Keto can land a heavy hit. With the opening created, the real brawl begins. Kyo activates Rauzaruk, and Zatch turns into a one-man tank, tossing enemies left and right. One Mamoto tries to use a giant carnivorous plant, but One-Ray shreds it in seconds. Defeated and humiliated, Bianco retreats with his tail between his legs. In the post-fight lull, Riddles drops a bombshell. The mysterious lore Lord is actually Zophis, a master of mind control, and the source of the intel? None other than the toughest duo in the game, Brago and Sherry. Flashback time. We see how Dr. Riddles tracked down Zophis. He tried to recruit Brago and Sherry in the Andes, but Brago, staying true to his lone wolf goth emo persona, gave him a hard, I don't play well with others. Sherry, however, shared the intel about the mind control before heading off on her own path of vengeance. Back in the present, the episode shifts into a clunky teen rom-com. Tia decides she needs to thank Zatch for saving her life, but her timing is disastrous. First, she tries to bandage him up and nearly strangles the poor kid. Then, inspired by One-Ray and Lian's soulmate telepathy, she tries to stare deep into Zatch's eyes, but she makes such a terrifying face that Zatch thinks he's about to be executed on the spot. Meanwhile, at the villain's HQ, Zophis is smelling a rat, and Layla has to play it cool to avoid suspicion. Back with the heroes, Fulgore makes Lian turn bright red by asking about kissing, sending her running. Tia hits an existential crisis and breaks down because she can't express herself until Megumi steps in with some solid motherly advice. Finally, Tia manages to swallow her pride and thanks Zatch without looking like a psychopath. The mood turns heavy when Kyo notices the healing stone is losing its glow. The battery is running low and the war is just getting started. The sun rises on a do or die kind of day. Apollo says his goodbyes, cheering the team on from afar while clutching a photo of Rops in a total sentimental vibe. The team begins their raid on the ruins, initially trying for a Metal Gear Solid stealth approach. Kyo tosses a rock to distract the guards and the group slips inside. Once indoors, the stealth goes out the window thanks to Kanchome drawing unwanted attention. The team gets pinned down in a hallway, a classic action movie pincer attack. But Kyo's got a galaxy brain. He tells everyone to scatter and dodge the spells, while Zatch brings the ceiling down to block the enemies. They push forward, clearing rooms with synchronized attacks, proving that teamwork is the current meta. The problem? It's getting hot. Really hot. They reach a room that's basically a lava pit with a narrow bridge. And guess who shows up? The big bad himself, Zophis. Kyo and Zatch try to blitz him, but the villain teleports like it's nothing. Playing dirty, Zophis destroys the bridge supports. In a classic Indiana Jones gone wrong moment, the floor vanishes, and everyone plunges toward the lava. The tables haven't just turned. They've been flipped into a volcano. The floor drops out from under the team, sparking a classic disaster movie scramble. But Dr. Riddles, who has a brain the size of Megamind's, already had a plan B. The gang splits into duos for a Mission Impossible rescue op. Kanchome turns into a makeshift hang glider to save his group. One-Ray goes full The Flash to carry the girls, and Sunbeam uses Pony Gun as an emergency transport. Meanwhile, we cut to Kyo's house, where Susie is making a classic sitcom cameo, totally oblivious to the fact that the world is ending. She wishes them good luck, which ironically triggers a wave of Final Destination light bad luck all around her. But the real action is at the ruins. Kyo's group is playing real-life Space Invaders against floating stars that shoot lasers, while Fulgora's team runs into Belgim EO, a massive Momoto who looks like a mummy chilling on a throne. The guy has been bored out of his mind for 1,000 years and demands entertainment. Basically, Fulgore has to pass a deadly audition for America's Got Talent if he wants to survive. One-Ray's group finds Saolon and his human partner Genso. Things escalate quickly into an insane martial arts brawl. Lian tries to help, thinking the human is brainwashed like the others, but she gets a reality check. Genso blocks her strikes effortlessly. Plot twist: the guy isn't under mind control at all. He joined the fight of his own free will just for the adrenaline rush. A true battle-hungry shonen villain. The episode ends with the heroes taking a devastating hit that sends everyone flying, while Fulgora is sweating bullets in a literal talent show, and Kyo is dodging laser fire. The focus shifts entirely to One-Ray's drama. The fighter is battered after tanking the last hit, but he stays on his feet to protect Lian and the girls, giving off that classic "I can do this all day" Captain America energy. The fight becomes a stage for an emotional heart-to-heart about fate. Lian and One-Ray know that because they're from different worlds, they'll eventually have to say goodbye when the battle ends. We get the Notebook-style flashback showing their simple life in the countryside, proving their love is stronger than any Momoto book rule. They decide that even if they're apart, they'll live on in each other's hearts. Cheesy? Maybe, but it's the power-up they needed. Seeing this incredible bond, Tia and Megumi enemy decide to act as the couple's power bank, transferring all their remaining energy to them. Recharged by the power of love and friendship, the most OP combo in anime, One Ray unleashes a turbocharged Rao Dibu Ren that swallows the enemy's attack whole. Saolon is defeated and his book burns. That leaves Genso, who tries to go toe-to-toe in a fistfight, but One Ray is inspired and blasts the human into a wall with a finishing blow. Romance wins the round. Back on the world's most dangerous stage, Fulgore freezes up. The judge, Belgium Io, is already prepping for a literal elimination, but Kanchome grabs the mic, hypes up his partner, and the two launch into a high school musical-style duet. The villain loves it, but there's a catch. He's totally unstable. When he gets happy, he starts firing off explosive spells at random. The situation devolves into slapstick comedy. Belgium tries to sing along, bites his tongue, gets furious, and attacks again. Dr. Riddles realizes they need to keep the guy entertained to stay alive, so he pulls out magic tricks and riddles. The villain gets so into it that the group's strategy pivots. Instead of fighting, they're going to make him burn all his mana through partying. Riddles has everyone spinning like human Beyblades. Belgium, wanting to fit in, starts spinning too, flies into the ceiling like an out-of-control helicopter, and faceplants. When he tries to attack again, nothing happens. He's completely drained his MP, magic points, from playing. It's the perfect opening. With the boss out of juice, Riddles preps the final counterattack while the villain realizes the party is over. The battle against Belgian EO turns into a 4D chess match. Dr. Riddles takes mental control of the field and uses Kanchome, the master of disguise, for a mission impossible gambit. He creates an illusion with two Kitos, and the confused villain tries to hit everything at once. Kanchome escapes by morphing into the floor itself, while the real Kito rushes in to burn the enemy's book. The problem? Belgium realizes Dr. Riddles is the brains of the operation and targets the old man. The villain hurls his throne with full force, sending the doctor flying. Even injured, Riddles refuses help and stays focused on the win. We get a tearjerker medical drama flashback. Riddles was living in isolated depression after a failed surgery until the little puppet Kito appeared and gave him a reason to live again. Back in the present, the doctor sacrifices himself to create an opening, but Kito jumps in front of the final blast to save his partner. The puppet tanks the explosion, but his book catches fire. In a moment that would make any tough guy cry, a projection of Kito appears, thanks Riddles for everything, and says the doctor was his true king.
That you'll always be my king.
With this goodbye, they launch Mikor Ma Zegaruga, a colossal spell that vaporizes Belgium's attack and burns his book. The victory is won, but the price was high. Kito fades into the light, leaving Riddles and the team heartbroken. Dr. Riddles wipes his tears, fueled by pure spite, and vows to honor Kito's sacrifice to the end. Meanwhile, Kyo's group is in a full-blown RPG dungeon, hunted by floating stars firing lasers. Kyo, with his genius IQ, figures out the mechanic. The stars track sound, giving off major A Quiet Place vibes. He uses a transformed pony gun as a sound decoy, having the little guy run along the walls to throw off the laser's aim. The plan works, and Kyo has Zatch blast the floor, revealing the puppet master below. Enter Pa Moon, one of Zolfus's 4 supreme generals. The problem? Pa Moon recognizes Kyo. Remember when Kyo was messing with a model and drew all over a stone statue's face? Yeah, that statue was a petrified Pa Moon. Now the villain is livid, seeking vengeance for the night at the museum-style humiliation. He unleashes a hail of lasers, and the only reason everyone isn't toast is because Mr. Sunbeam has ninja reflexes and saves Kyo at the last second. Pa Moon explains he doesn't serve Zolfus out of loyalty, but out of fear. He's seen what happens to those who disobey. Fear is his fuel, and he's ready to take all that trauma out on the good guys. The fight against Pa Moon becomes a test of endurance. Zatch and Ponygon activate their buffs, Rousaruk and Goshudaruk, and charge in for a tag team attack. But Pa Moon isn't a general for nothing. He activates his own reinforcement magic and stops the two heroes like they're kids on a playground. The villain's motivation is pure PTSD. A flashback shows that 1,000 years ago, he was strong and honorable, but he lost the final battle because he showed empathy for a child hostage. The result? The enemy, Goran, turned him into stone, Han Solo style. Now, Pa Moon is terrified of becoming a statue again and obeys Zolfus blindly to avoid that cruel fate. He traps everyone with his stars and preps the execution. When all hope seems lost, Kyo and Sunbeam keep their cool cool and narrowly escape the blast zone. Zatch, battered and bruised, stands up and delivers a classic shonen protagonist speech. He offers Pa Moon genuine friendship and promises to protect him from that loneliness, basically acting as a therapist mid-war. Pa Moon is shaken but decides to test the kid's resolve with his ultimate attack, Pentalam Farga. Without blinking, Kyo preps Baozakurga at full power. It's the final showdown. Trauma versus hope, a collision of powers that will decide who's left standing. This is the climax of the giant laser brawl. It's a total Dragon Ball Z moment. Pa Moon's Pentalam Farga versus Zatch's Baozakurga. Pa Moon tries to push the limit, amping up the power to fuse the blasts, but our protagonist holds the line through sheer willpower and the power of friendship.
You think you can become king with this puny level of strength? What a joke!
While struggling against the spell, Zatch reminds the general of his previous motivational speech. Pa Moon realizes that while he has the lasers, the blonde kid has the soul of a king. He surrenders, admitting moral defeat, and blasts a hole in the ceiling, deciding to take the gang on an express elevator straight to the VIP area where the Moonlight Stone is kept. Pa Moon is fully leaning into his redemption arc, ready to betray his toxic boss and help Zatch in the final stretch. The problem? Zophis is worse than Emperor Palpatine on a bad day. The villain appears out of nowhere, and without even entertaining a conversation, strikes Pa Moon's book. The general starts to fade away, but uses his final seconds to tell Zophis, "I'm not afraid of you anymore. It was tragic, but he went out on top." Livid over the death of their new friend, the situation turns south fast when Penny and Bianca arrive with reinforcements, surrounding the exhausted team. It looks like the end of the road for Kyo and Sunbeam until the ceiling, metaphorically, crashes down. Brago and Sherry arrive with an aura that says, "I'm the one who knocks," shutting down every enemy attack with a single move. The Gothic cavalry has arrived to restore order. The battle dynamic shifts completely. Brago and Sherry didn't come to play. Sherry draws a line in the dirt like a strict teacher and tells Kyo's group to stay in the kids' corner because the adults are taking over. And man, do they. Brago uses a high-level gravity spell, Ba Bear Gravidon, which basically flattens the army of ancient demons like soda cans in a hydraulic press. Kyo, sharp as ever, tells Zatch to take notes because that dark-clad Goth is the true rival for the throne. Sherry is hyper-focused on rescuing her friend Coco and shuts Kyo down when he suggests an alliance, telling them to get lost. Sunbeam, ever the voice of reason, reminds the team they're out of mana and it's better to find another way. But their GPS is broken and they run straight into Penny, the obsessive girlfriend, and Bianca blocking the path. Just as Penny preps her finishing move, the comedy trio arrive at the 11th hour to save the day and even swipe the enemy's book. Briefly, they show off a fragment of the Moonlight Stone used to recharge the group's batteries, but the mood drops when Zatch realizes Keto is gone. Staying on mission, Sunbeam uses a boosted pony gun to carry everyone toward the moonlight. There, they find Layla and Albert hiding behind a pillar. The gang thinks they've found an ally, like hitting a save point, but Layla launches a surprise attack. Trust in these ruins didn't last long. It's total chaos.
Huh? Migaron! Layla!
Layla is attacking from one side, and a hysterical Penny is on the other with Bianco. Kanchome uses his shape-shifting tricks to turn everyone into background scenery to hide the group, giving Kyo time to cook up a genius plan. Use Zatch's charm. The idea is for Zatch to pretend he wants to be Penny's boyfriend to calm her down, but the girl is stage 5 clinger intense. She misreads everything and starts planning the wedding. Zatch panics, tries to let her down easy, and the fury of the ex-future bride only makes things worse. The focus shifts back to Layla. Kyo realizes she's not evil. She's just suffering from severe Zophis-induced PTSD. She believes that if she leaves the moonlight, she'll turn back into stone. Kyo, acting as a tactical psychologist, explains that Zophis is a master gaslighter and the petrification is a mental illusion built on her fear. To prove his point, Kyo drops his book and walks toward her with open arms. Insane levels of guts. Penny tries to ruin the moment, but Zatch gives her a shut-it look so intense even she respects it. Emboldened by Kyo, Layla decides to test the theory and jumps out of the light. Her mind plays tricks on her, making her feel like she's petrifying in total darkness. But then the silent MVP steps in. Albert, her partner, grips her hand tight. The human connection breaks the illusion like waking up from the Matrix. Layla realizes Albert has always been there for her, regains her courage, and vows to take Zophis down. Finally, the team is complete and ready for the final boss. Layla promises to be the group's GPS and guide them to the Moonstone Chamber, but her memory is buggier than a first-gen smartphone. Kanchome and Folgore, being themselves, run ahead and trigger Indiana Jones-style traps. Layla tries to find the right path by looking at the statues, but her indecision just leads to more explosions. After nearly turning the team into mash, she finally finds the way through sheer brute force. Meanwhile, Penny tries to warn them that the danger ahead is high level and tells them to turn back. The group ignores her, and Bianco, the frog who was on the villain's side, finally switches teams. He gets real with Penny. They've been on the wrong side of history this whole time. Welcome to the Resistance, pal. Elsewhere, One Ray's group climbs the stairs and finds 3 statues who think they're the Miss Universe of the ruins. The challenge to pass? Pick the prettiest one. The gang hits an existential panic, but Lian has zero patience for a beauty pageant. Instead of answering, she lets a spell fly and blasts the statues into oblivion. Problem solved with brute force. They reach the Moonstone Chamber, but the reception is hostile. Daemalt, the massive security guard of the place, starts swinging immediately. Megumi tries to tank the damage with a shield, but the beast is too strong. When the barrier shatters and the attack comes crashing down, One Ray makes the ultimate heroic sacrifice. He throws himself in front and is brutally impaled to save the team. Kyo's group arrives just in time to see the carnage and the trauma unfold. The mood is grim. With One Ray knocked out and the girls in shock, Daemalt lets out a roar that paralyzes almost everyone with fear. Layla saves the day, going into beast mode and using a judo maneuver to slam the giant monster. She tosses Megumi and Tia toward One Ray so they can heal the fallen soldier while she distracts the boss. Layla notices that Daemalt doesn't fight like a wild animal. There's a strategic mind there. Meanwhile, Folgore has the brilliant idea to turn Kanchome into a wall to act as a bunker for the rest of the gang. Kyo and Ponygon jump into the fray to provide support because Layla can't hold out forever on her own. Cut to the desert. Sherry and Brago are chasing Zophis through the canyons. The kid finally stops, puts on a Magneto-style helmet, and reveals he lured them there on purpose. Sherry tries to attack, but the helmet creates a force field that nullifies all damage. Back in the boss room, we find out why Daemalt is such a smart fighter. His partner, Roberto Vile, isn't being mind-controlled. The guy is just naturally evil. He reveals he's only in this because Zophis promised him the Moonlight Stone so he could control people's minds later. It's pure greed. Hearing this fills Kyo and Zatch with that classic protagonist rage. Now it's personal. After discovering that Roberto Vile is a villain by choice rather than brainwashing, the heroes kick it into high gear. Zatch and Kyo charge in, fire in their eyes. Zatch takes a beating and hits the dirt, but he gets up every single time, like Rocky Balboa in the final round, refusing to accept defeat. Sunbeam commands Ponygon to use his speed to disorient Daemalt and create an opening. Layla attempts a stealth approach to destroy the Moonstone from behind while the monster is distracted, but Daemalt has ninja-like reflexes and blocks the strike. The situation is dire. The group hiding behind Kanchome's wall wants to jump in, but Folgore holds them back, insisting they must wait for the perfect moment. Kyo realizes that reckless attacks won't work and begins charging the book for a decisive strike, aiming at the monster's weak spot, the neck. It's a classic video game boss battle mechanic. Zatch gives it his all, and Kyo unleashes Bowserkerga, the giant electric dragon. The spell lands a direct hit, forcing Daemalt to his knees. Victory? Not even close. The Moonstone acts like an infinite health cheat, and the monster begins to regenerate. Just as it looks like game over for our team, unexpected help arrives. Penny and Uri appear out of nowhere, blasting a water spell right into the enemy's face. Zatch's former stalker has officially turned ally, arriving in the nick of time to level the playing field. Chaos reigns. Penny and Bianco have switched sides to help, but Daemalt isn't playing around. The creature is an absolute tank, and worse, the Moonstone provides a literal God mode cheat, healing any damage he takes. Roberto Vile, seeing the heroes are exhausted, decides to charge his ultimate, a spell that promises to wipe the entire team. Everyone tries to stop the attack but ends up getting knocked out. Only Penny and Bianco remain in the crosshairs. That's when Ori, Penny's partner, snaps out of NPC mode and throws up a shield to save her. As for Bianco, the frog is shaking like Shaggy seeing a ghost, but his partner, Alvin, gives him a much-needed reality check. We get a Sesame Street-style flashback. All the frog ever wanted was cookies and friendship. Motivated, Bianco turns into an action hero. He carries Penny and takes the heavy hit to protect her. Unfortunately, his book catches fire and the frog begins to fade away, but not before ensuring he's finally part of Zatch's team. Inspired by his friend's sacrifice, sacrifice, Penny devises a brilliant plan. She tells Ori to attack, but not the monster. She cuts off her own pigtails to use as a decoy. A total ninja move. While Daemalt attacks the fake Penny, she scales the monster's wings and clears a path for Uri to destroy the Moonstone. The enemy's health regen is gone. Vile tries to retaliate by attacking Penny in midair, but Zatch and Ponygon perform an aerial rescue.
So sorry, Zatch! My love! Huh?
Are you okay, Penny? No. Sorry.
Penny says her goodbyes, asking everyone to play with Bianco in the Momoto world, and vanishes. It was a tragic loss, but the villain's healing hack is officially over. Far away in the canyon, the battle between Brago, Sherry, and Zulfus takes a turn. The moment the Moonstone was destroyed in the ruins, Zulfus's force field collapsed. Now it's a fair fight. The gothic duo wastes no time launching a Dioga Gravidon. Amidst the smoke, Sherry finally comes face to face with Coco. The tension is palpable. Back at the ruins, Daemalt's partner completely loses it. Without the stone to heal the Momoto, he decides to go for broke. In a scene straight out of Venom or Dragon Ball Z, Daemalt grabs his own human partner and swallows him alive. He literally ate the guy to drain energy directly from the source. The monster gains new armor and becomes even more broken, shattering Tia and Megumi's defenses like glass. Conchoma and Fulgora try to distract the giant with holograms, but the beast doesn't fall for it for long. In a moment of desperation, Kyo feels the power of friendship flowing and unlocks the 7th spell, Zagur Zen, but he casts the move, but it seems like it did nothing except make the monster's arm glow. Kyo, being the strategist he is, figures out the mechanic. It's a stacking buff that electrifies the target to amplify the damage of the next attack. The problem is landing it on a frenzied beast. That's the cue for Albert to wake up. He joins forces with Layla to unleash Miberna Ma Migran, a spell filled with floating crescent moons, proving that their teamwork is now sharp enough to hold the beast back. Albert has turned into a pro-tier esports strategist. Commanding Layla's moons with surgical precision, he treats Daemalt like a marionette, exploding moons in his face, creating containment nets, and tripping the giant. Kyo seizes the opening and lands the first Zagur Zen. The plan is simple. Stack the electricity in the enemy's body to unleash a final blow with guaranteed critical damage. But Daemalt enters phase 2 of the boss battle. He punches his own stomach, super bizarre, to force his swallowed partner to release more power. The creature becomes an unstoppable tank, destroying Layla's moons and moving in for the kill. Just when all seems lost, One Ray rises from the ashes. The Kung Fu Master, who had been KO'd, arrives with a flying kick to take the monster down, allowing Kyo to land the final Zagur Zen charge. Now Daemalt looks like a battery about to explode. Trying to escape, the monster flies up and spots what he thinks is Zatch on the ground, but it was just Conchome in Zatch cosplay serving as bait. The real Zatch is on Ponygon's back, perfectly positioned. Kyo summons Bao's the Kerga, which, tuned up by the electricity accumulated in the enemy's body, hits dead center. It's an instant KO. One Ray finishes it by punching the monster in the gut, forcing him to vomit out his partner and the book. One Ray burns the book, sending Daemalt back home.
Go Barin!
Blast you! Blast you!
The villainous human wakes up, realizes he's lost, and runs away crying. One down, but the true big bad, Zulfus, is still standing, waiting for Sherry. The battle between Sherry and Zulfus enters a heavy level of psychological torture, resembling those thrillers where the villain tries to break the hero's mind before their body. Coco, completely manipulated, starts a hate speech worthy of a Regina George, claiming she always envied Sherry because of their social class difference. The atmosphere gets heavy, and Zulfus takes advantage by using the girl as a human shield, preventing any direct attack. To make matters worse, Coco brings up a traumatic flashback from Sherry's 10th birthday party, revealing that she was the one who stole a family heirloom to frame her friend. Sherry is devastated, completely freezing up. Brago, who couldn't care less about teen drama, steps in front of a colossal spell to save his partner, acting as a human tank and taking massive critical damage. He tries to scream Sherry back to her senses, but she remains paralyzed. Just as Zulfus is claiming victory, Sherry notices a detail: Coco's wooden earrings. They have the sun and moon carved into them, a symbol of protection they both shared. It's the plot twist they needed. Sherry realizes the hate speech was fake news and finally hears her friend's true voice crying out for help. With an adrenaline cheat activated, she stands up, unleashes a Bobber Gravidon that nullifies the villain's attack, and even manages to strike Zulfus's arm. Sherry is back in the game, and now it's personal. Sherry is out for blood and lands a solid hit on Zulfus, but the villain is not a fan of being touched. He retaliates by destroying the ground, sending Sherry and Brago plummeting into an abyss like Wile E. Coyote, removing the duo from the fight. Zophis thinks he's won the round, but little does he know the whole squad has just arrived. It's like the portal scene in Avengers Endgame. Layla, Albert, Tia, Megumi, Wanrei, Leanne, Ponygon, and even the comic relief duo Kanchome and Fulgore show up to hold the line. Kyo and Zatch come from behind, firing a Zakurga to get his attention. Zophis, absolutely livid, decides that if he can't win, he'll blow everything up, triggering a volcanic eruption. The setting literally becomes the floor is lava, with magma and rocks falling everywhere. Despite the apocalypse, the group pulls off an insane combo. Wanrei and Tia raise shields to tank the hits, while Kanchome transforms into a giant slingshot, real-life Angry Bird style. He launches Kyo, Zatch, and Ponygon into the air for a high-speed aerial pursuit against Zophis. The villain tries to shot them down, but they dodge everything. In the finale, Kyo hurls Zatch himself toward the enemy like an electrified baseball. Zatch comes flying in with a Bao Zakurga aimed right at Zophis's face, thinking he's about to close the deal. But out of nowhere, Sherry and Brago respawn. They return from the abyss and attack Zatch. It's a tense, friendly fire moment because Sherry wants to settle this grudge alone. It's the classic rival pride trope. She needs to save her friend with her own hands. Zatch and Kyo, though reluctant, decide to back off and give her the stage. The fight turns into a 1v1, well, a 2v2. Zophis plays dirty, using the volcano's lava to create magma dragons, bending the element like a scene from Avatar. But Sherry is untouchable, dodging everything through pure willpower. Remembering how Coco saved her life in the past, during the exchange, Zophis tries to be clever and lies about the stolen necklace, but he ends up playing himself and admits the jewel was a fake. He fell for his own bait and got caught in the lie. Desperate and seeing that his mind games have failed, Zophis commands Coco to jump into a pit of lava. It's his final, dirty card. Sherry doesn't think twice. She uses her flail to hurl Zophis into the air, canceling his attack, and asks Brago to launch her toward the precipice. Sherry takes an insane leap of faith to catch her friend mid-air before she turns into barbecue, ending the episode on a breathtaking cliffhanger. The Battle of the Titans comes to an end as Brago shows who's boss, crushing Zolfis's attack and securing victory with the aura of an Elden Ring final boss. With the villain down, Sherry rushes to Coco's side, relieved to have her friend back, but Zophis is the kind of sore loser who won't let it go. He lets out a wicked laugh and reveals the ultimate gotcha. Coco wasn't just under his control. She's going to wake up with every memory of the atrocities she committed, like a winter soldier, just without the super soldier serum. It's pure psychological torture, condemning the girl to a life of eternal guilt. Sherry falls into despair and demands he erase those memories, but Zophis is enjoying the chaos. That's when Brago steps into the role of the Punisher. He steps up and lays down the law. If Zophis doesn't wipe Coco's mind right now, he will spend eternity in the Momoto world being hunted by Brago day and night without rest.
Do you want to spend a lifetime in fear? Running away from me even after returning to the Momoto world?
Fear speaks louder than malice, and Zophis shakes in his boots, quickly agreeing to the mental reset. Coco wakes up free, without the war trauma, ready to live her Gossip Girl life. The mood turns to farewells. Sherry thanks Kyo's gang and promises to focus on Brago's presidential campaign for the throne. But then comes the gut punch. Layla decides her time is up. She asks them to burn her book, saying goodbye to Albert with a kiss on the cheek and exiting with the dignity of someone who just 100% completed the game, leaving a promise that one of them will be a just king. Cut to Paris, where Coco is recovering in the hospital, living her Emily in Paris moment, remembering nothing, but feeling that Sherry is her hero. Outside, Sherry and Brago reaffirm their partnership. The objective now is the throne, whatever the cost. The new year starts with that post-holiday hangover vibe, with Kyo polishing off the leftovers until the piece is shattered. Fulgore and Kanchome invade the house in the best Seinfeld Kramer style, bringing a story that sounds like it came from a fever dream. Fulgore says he dreamed of Victorium on an insane quest for melons. In the dream, the V-Head guy meets the god of this universe, the manga creator, who grants him one wish. And what does he ask for? A movie about his life. Yes, the guy's ego is bigger than the budget for Avatar. Fulgore, thinking he's the next Spielberg, starts pitching this movie to Kyo and Zatch, who are basically held hostage. The ideas are pure chaos. Victorium as a 007 style spy, cringeworthy musical numbers, and nonsensical battles. There's even a scene where Victorium tries to find melons and ends up up in an improvised talk show in the middle of a fight. Kyo tries to escape this mental torture, but Tia appears and, being a natural film critic, points out the plot is missing a heroine. Then the script becomes a total mess. Fulgora invents a kidnapping plot where Belgian EO captures Suzy and the girls. An imaginary epic battle ensues where everyone gets beat up just to make the protagonist look good. In the climax, Zatch gives a melon to Victorium, who unleashes his supreme spell, Very Melon, defeating the villain with the power of the fruit. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard.
Very melon!
He did it!
When Fulgore finishes his Razzie-worthy presentation, he realizes he's lost his audience. The gang bailed to eat Tia's cooking. He and Kanchome try to continue the production, but Kyo, out of patience, kicks them both out. Life tries to return to normal after the madness of the ruins. Kyo is having breakfast, but the peace is short-lived. Sunbeam shows up for a boys' day out with Ponygon, leaving Zatch feeling needy and wanting to go to school with Kyo. Naturally, this turns into a Tom and Jerry chase, with Kyo running after Zatch, losing his Vulcan 300 in a truck, and causing traffic chaos. Meanwhile, Suzy tries and fails to say hi to her crush, getting unintentionally ignored the whole time. At school, the vibe is Mean Girls, but the villain is Professor Toyama. The guy is salty because Kyo skipped so many classes and is still the class genius. He springs a surprise test tailor-made to screw Kyo over, covering exactly what was taught while he was away. To make things worse, Zatch invades the classroom with a school of fish, don't ask, disrupting everything. The result? Kyo gets a 70%, which for a nerd of his level is basically the apocalypse. Toyama admits to his face that he rigged it because he hates perfect students. It's war. Toyama promises another impossible test for the next day, but then comes an Avengers Endgame moment. The whole class unites. Led by Suzy, they give all their notes to Kyo. The kid pulls an all-nighter studying with everyone's material. Test time arrives and plot twist. The only question is about the professor's love life. No one knows the answer, obviously. The professor laughs at their misery until Zatch and Ponygon bring in the secret weapon, the school principal. The man arrives, sees the absurdity of the test, and calls game over on Toyama's antics.
Yes?
What kind of questions are these?
Well,
Report to my office now!
Justice is served, and Kyo heads home with the gang, finally noticing Suzy after a dog of a day. Kyo tries to leave the house like a ninja, but Zatch obviously notices and wants to tag along. After being dismissed, the Momoto gets bored and decides to play housewife, helping with the shopping. The mission seems simple, but Zatch and Ponygon end up at the park, which looks like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max set. They find Naomi, Zatch's childhood nemesis, fleeing in her toy car like she's in a Fast and Furious chase. Convinced she's the villain behind the playground's destruction, the dynamic duo, now reinforced by Tia, decides to investigate. The trio follows Naomi to the mall in a spy op that would make the cast of Mission Impossible cringe. They watch the girl buy bizarre and suspicious items, convinced she's building an arsenal to dominate the world, or just the playground. Tension rises, but Naomi is smarter and flips the script. She calls security and reports the three of them as lost children. A Scooby-Doo chase breaks out, with security guards chasing the Momotos while Naomi finishes her shopping, cool as a cucumber. After being rescued by Kyo and Megumi, Zatch can't let it go and goes to confront Naomi at the park. The atmosphere is like a Western final duel. Naomi reveals her purchases, a bunch of junk specifically designed to torture Zatch in creative ways. She leaves laughing, leaving Zatch confused when he sees that she had actually cleaned and fixed the entire playground. The episode ends with that classic love-hate relationship. She fixed the place just so she could torment him in a clean environment the next day. While the kids spend time on crafts and creating new Vulcan dolls, the mood is heavy at Dr. Riddle's mansion. The eccentric doctor is in a deep depression, locked in his room and refusing to eat, still mourning the loss of Keto. The Majestic 12 try to help, but they have the emotional depth of a teaspoon. That's when the anime's most chaotic duo arrives. Fulgore and Kanchome show up for a surprise visit. Sensing the funeral vibe, Fulgore tries to fix everything with a song, but Dr. Riddles ignores the performance and retreats to his cave of solitude. Fulgore hatches a plan worthy of a drama movie. Use Kanchome's magic to turn the duck into a Keto lookalike. Kanchome enters the room shaking, but the illusion works. Riddles, seeing his old partner there, finally opens up. An intense therapy session follows with emotional flashbacks, showing how they met and how the doctor taught the little Mamoto the importance of keeping the light of hope burning, even when all seems lost against the Millennium Mamotos. It's that Master Yoda-style motivational speech that changes everything. These memories serve as a cure. Riddles relives their adventures, Kido overcoming his fear, and their final victory. After pouring his heart out, he suggests Kido return to the Mamoto world, giving Kanchome the cue to leave without ruining the moment.
Thank you, Kanchome and Fulgore. I'm okay now.
The plan is a total success. The next day, Dr. Riddles is back on his feet, renewed and ready for action, hitching a ride on Apollo's helicopter. He receives a gift from Zatch and warns that the calm is over. A new threat is coming that will affect both worlds. Zatch starts having bizarre prophetic dreams about a mysterious light and strange stones. Kyo, switching into Sherlock Holmes mode and using Google, discovers the place actually exists in Nara. Whether by coincidence or plot convenience, Dr. Riddles calls to warn about the same anomaly. Without wasting time, the whole squad heads out on a field trip. Once there, instead of monsters, they find tourists, an armadillo Mamoto named Majorol and his Scottish partner Nicholas, who walks around playing the bagpipes. The vibe turns into a National Geographic episode, with everyone camping out and becoming instant best friends. They trade sad backstories, with Nicholas recounting how he saved Majorol from bullies in Bolivia, creating an unbreakable bond. Zatch, Ponygon, and Majorol play and dance around the campfire. That moment of calm every anime fan knows is a prelude to disaster. Zatch has another nightmare, and the mysterious light finally appears in the middle of the forest. When the group runs to investigate, a horror movie scene unfolds. They arrive just in time to see Majorol and Nicholas being brutally attacked. Before anyone can do a thing, Majorol's book catches fire. The little creature vanishes, leaving Zatch devastated and furious. The protagonist demands to know who committed this cowardice, and from the shadows emerge the last people he expected to see, Sherry and Brago. The Gothic rivals have arrived to show that the competition for the throne isn't over, and they aren't playing around. But tension is thick in the forest. Zatch is livid, channeling his inner John Wick because they messed with his friends. He charges at Brago, demanding answers for the burnt book. But then Sherry drops a bombshell. The cute armadillo and the bagpipe-playing Scotsman were the ones who attacked first. In a quick flashback, we find out the tourists were aggressive, and well, messing with Brago is a good way to become a statistic. Despite the explanation, tempers don't cool down, and the brawl begins. Spells fly everywhere, with Kyo using his usual strategy of buffing Zatch with Rauzaruk, turning the kid into a tank. But Brago is on another level, trading blows like he's in an episode of Dragon Ball Z.
How dare you do that to my friend Mojiro!
When will you stop being naive, Zatch?
You could have spared him like you spared me!
When things get heated, both sides decide to unleash their specials. Bauza Kerga versus Dioga Gravidon. The clash of energy is so massive it rips through reality and pulls everyone into a mysterious light alien abduction style. They wake up in a place that looks like a glitched Minecraft server, full of iron ore. Zatch, Kyo, and Ponygon drop into an open field, while Brago and Sherry spawn directly in the boss's castle. This boss is Maestro, a Mamoto who explains they are in the in-between world, basically a dimensional Alcatraz where criminal Mamotos are sent for a timeout without being able to use magic. But what Zatch and Kyo discover immediately is that the iron soldiers of this world are terrified of spellbooks. It seems the book is the only weapon that works here. In the castle, Maestro gives Brago a shady sales pitch. He reveals the cheat code of this world. Here, whoever has the book can cast magic alone, without needing a human partner. It's basically every independent Mamoto's dream. He proposes an alliance, but Brago, with his lone wolf vibe, refuses instantly. He just wants to go home and continue the official demon battle. Meanwhile, the three musketeers, Zatch, Kyo, and Ponygon, are lost on the map until they're surrounded by a junk metal army led by Kurogane. These enemies use weapons that mimic spells since they can't cast real ones. Kyo, who clearly didn't skip physics class, notices everyone is wearing iron armor and decides to use his brain. He fires off a Jikurdor, turning the battlefield into a giant magnet. The strategy works like magic, literally. The soldiers stick to each other like Lego bricks, and even the boss Kurogane becomes a walking magnet, getting crushed by ore rocks. A victory for science. Back at the castle, Brago decides to test Maestro's theory. He leaves Sherry hanging, grabs the book, and casts a gravity spell solo. Sherry's face is that of someone who just got fired. Maestro watches from the sidelines, laughing like a 007 villain, knowing the pieces are falling exactly where he wanted. In the real world, the CSI team, led by Dr. Riddles, tries to figure out where everyone went. But in the in-between world, things are heating up. Zatch and Polygon decide to ignore any stealthy plans and storm the castle in full Leroy Jenkins style, taking on the guards through sheer willpower. Inside, Maestro manipulates Brago with a classic lie. He says that to open the portal back home, he needs the energy released by burning Zatch's book. Brago, who wanted to fight anyway, accepts, and here comes the drama. He forbids Sherry from fighting, wanting to settle everything himself with his new solo power. Zatch and Kyo try to talk sense into him, but Brago is already unleashing gravity. Polygon, the episode's MVP, throws himself in front of an attack to save his friends and ends up knocked out. The fight between the rivals intensifies, and the spell energy starts charging giant coils in the environment. When the charge hits max, the portal opens. That's when Maestro reveals he's the Palpatine of this whole story. The portal doesn't go to the human world, but to the Mamoto world. His plan was never to help anyone get home, but to use the energy from their fight to invade the other world with his army and get revenge. He thanks them for the involuntary help and announces he's going to eliminate everyone. Classic villain mistake, explaining the plan before winning. Maestro finally shows his hand and reveals his revenge plot is to destroy the Mamoto world because he was banished there like an employee fired without cause. Zatch, with his typical shonen protagonist heart of gold, tries to use talk no jutsu to convince the villain to return to the human world and fight fair, but Maestro isn't interested in talking and prefers to devastate everything with his army. The brawl begins, and it's quickly clear the villain is using hacks. Zatch and Brago unleash their best moves, but Maestro has a Magnus shield that repels everything. The guy is basically Magneto, powered up by a bunch of coils scattered around, controlling the trajectory of any spell. The situation is grim. Brago is down, and the coils seem indestructible. But then, out of nowhere, Sherry appears to save the day. With his partner back, Brago recovers his book and his second wind. They try their classic combo, even firing off a Dioga Graviton, but Maestro's magnetic shield tanks absolutely everything. Kyo, the group's strategist, realizes attacking separately won't work. He suggests the unthinkable, an alliance between Zatch and Brago. Brago refuses instantly, but Sherry drops the truth. Either they work together or nobody goes home. Zatch is still salty because Brago burned the Armadillo's book in the previous episode, but he understands that defeating Maestro is the priority. Swallowing their pride and hatred, the two rivals accept a temporary truce and charge at the boss together. The raid against the final boss of the in-between world begins for real. While Kyo and Sherry stay backline to plot the strategy, Zatch and Brago go in for melee. The problem is Maestro is using the coil energy to buff himself, becoming an unstoppable tank.
I built these amplification coils to enhance my power and supplement the extra energy I lacked in order to open the door to the Mamoto world.
Kyo realizes they need to be smarter and initiates phase 2 inches of the plan. The idea is to overload the coils with energy. Brago serves as a distraction while Zatch prepares a massive Zagur Zen. They try a master stroke to force the electricity through the magnetic shield, but the coils absorb the attack and worse, finish opening the portal to the Mamoto world. Maestro's Iron Army begins to march, and the villain, feeling like Emperor Palpatine himself, invites the heroes to join the dark side. Obviously, everyone refuses. It's time for phase 3, all or nothing. Zatch and Brago unleash their ultimates simultaneously. Bowzakerga and Bobber Graviton. The clash of powers is so absurd that Zatch's electric dragon gets a new black skin upgrade, shattering Maestro's supreme defense and knocking out the villain for good. With the portal closed and the plan foiled, Maestro tells his sad story of abandonment, but Brago has no patience for drama and burns his book. Before vanishing, the ex-villain reveals how to get home. The duo casts a combined spell opening a dimensional rift, and they literally fall from the sky, landing right on top of Dr. Riddles and Fulgore in the human world. Mission accomplished. After saving the world again, life returns to normal, which in this anime means school chaos. Suzy shows up at Kyo's house acting all needy, but he dodges her to head to school. Once there, he runs into Professor Toyama, who is looking strangely happy. The reason? He's prepared an academic revenge for Kyo. In class, Toyama drops a surprise test with impossible questions, certain he'll break the protagonist's streak of high grades, except Kyo is a genius and gets everything right through educated guessing. Frustrated, the professor activates his secret weapon, the new Japanese teacher, Miss Wriggle. She's the classic anime trope of the beautiful teacher who makes everyone fall in love. The whole class is hypnotized, except for Kyo, who has the romantic sensitivity of a brick wall. Wriggle gives an assignment for credit: write a haiku about the agonies of youth. While everyone tries to write deep poetry to impress the teacher, Kyo writes about his breakfast. The poem is so bad and off topic that he gets a 0. The class collapses in shock, and Toyama celebrates outside like he just won the lottery, finally seeing Kyo fail at something. The action starts at the hospital, where Nicholas is in a heavy funk, feeling guilty about what happened to his partner. Fulgore, who can't stand seeing anyone sad and loves being the center of attention, decides the solution is an eat, pray, love style trip. He and Kanchome drag Nicholas to Italy, betting that pizza and beautiful scenery can cure any depression. But the hole is deeper than that. Neither the city nor the countryside helps. Then the geniuses have a brilliant idea. Dig a literal hole for Nicholas to scream his sadness into. Low-budget primal therapy. Kanchome turns into a giant lid to hold the sound in, but the guy's sadness is at radioactive levels. The melody leaks out and causes a crying epidemic across the entire city, looking like the end of an Oscar-winning drama. Fulgore tries to save the day with a live show, but the audience is too depressed even to applaud. Nicholas, seeing that sea of tears, remembers that his partner loved seeing people smile, not cry. He changes the playlist, plays an upbeat song on the bagpipes, and like Disney magic, everyone is happy again. Nicholas realizes the show must go on, thanks to the dynamic duo, and sets off on his solo career around the world. Ted, a kid with a pompadour hairstyle, and his partner Jito arrive in town. While Jito goes hunting for food, Ted tries to find a job and a place to stay, but ends up finding Zatch's secret base, a cardboard box in the park guarded like it's Fort Knox. Zatch denies him entry, a silly argument ensues, and a piece of gum ends up stuck in Ted's hair. That's a mortal insult to him. A brawl begins. Fight Club, Kindergarten Edition. They trade punches, realize they're both tough as nails, and start lifting rocks to see who's stronger. Mid-workout, they realize they're both Momotos and become instant best friends, like a scene out of Step Brothers. Ted explains he's looking for his family, a Momoto named Cherish, and Zatch offers him a place at Kyo's house, turning it into a Momoto Airbnb. In the middle of the night, the piece ends. Arth and Ellie, a duo with a medieval knight vibe, challenge Zatch and Kyo to a fight. The reason? The electric dragon Bao. In the middle of the bridge battle, just as Arth is about to deliver the final blow to Zatch, Ted appears out of nowhere, punches the knight, and takes over the fight to protect his new friend. The bridge battle is in full swing. Ted takes the lead against Arth while Zatch tries to catch his breath. The problem is Arth's sword has a cheat code. It drains the energy of whoever it touches. Kyo spots the trick, but Ted is stubborn and keeps punching, using spells that work like gear shifts. Each spell increases his power and speed, pushing Jito's heart to the limit. Arth tries to talk, warning that there are two global threats, a mysterious structure and Zatch's own Bao. Ted ignores the villain's speech and keeps swinging. Things get tight when Ellie launches a defensive barrier, and Ted gets badly hurt. That's the cue for Zatch to get back in the game. Kyo hatches a strategy using Zogger Zen to charge energy into the enemy's sword. In a masterstroke, they combine a distraction with the ultimate attack. Bao Zakerga is unleashed at full power. Arth and Ellie try to block, but the electric dragon steamrolls their defense. Even after taking the hit, Arth stays standing, proving he's a professional tank. Recognizing the destructive potential of Bao, the duo decides to retreat strategically to investigate the other threat, dropping the name that will haunt everyone from now on, Faudo. At breakfast, we discover Ted's stomach is a black hole, crushing Hana's omelets like he's in a man versus food challenge. But the calm is short-lived. Ted and his partner Jito get their motorcycle ready to hit the road. Before leaving, there's some dramatic talk. Ted asks Kyo and Zatch to look out for Cherish if they find her, swearing he's not her enemy. Promise made, time to rev up. Except not. The bike dies faster than a side character in a horror movie. The mechanical diagnosis points to a spark plug, and Ted goes on a side quest to buy the part with Zatch as his tour guide. The mission derails when Ted catches a familiar scent. His nose is like a GPS radar locked onto Cherish. Zatch tries to help using his own sense of smell but only tracks random scents that lead nowhere. Failing the sniff test, fast. They switch to a visual search, Where's Waldo style. They spot a girl who looks like her, chase her to a mall, and the chaos begins. Ted is running up escalators, down elevators, knocking people over, and ends up surrounded by some tough guys who didn't appreciate being pushed. Zatch tries to play the hero and takes the heat so his friend can keep searching, but Ted comes back and ends the discussion his way, with a punch that demolishes a concrete wall. Total Hulk vibes. In the end, the girl wasn't Cherish. Frustration sets in, but hope remains. Back on the road with the bike fixed, Ted looks back at the city, promising he'll find his lost friend one day. The mail brings news. Sunbeam is moving into the neighborhood. Hana suggests a housewarming gift, and Susie is invited along. Of course, in her head, this isn't a group shopping trip. It's a romantic date with Kyo straight out of a teen comedy. The dream quickly turns into a nightmare when Zatch reveals the other guests, Tia and Megumi. Susie's jealousy hits the roof, seeing the pop idol acting so friendly with her boyfriend. At the mall, a passive-aggressive competition starts over who picks the best gift. Susie whips out a lie detector, because nothing says love like a police interrogation, and makes Kyo sweat by asking about his relationship with Megumi. The device beeps more than a fire alarm, making things tense. In the end, nobody picks anything decent, and poor Sunbeam ends up with the very lie detector Susie already opened. Later, at the new apartment, the group tries to help with the move. Megumi is efficient, but Susie, trying to impress, causes more destruction than a hurricane, turning the cleaning into chaos. When hunger strikes, Megumi offers to cook, but Susie intercepts, wanting to prove her culinary worth. While she prepares the feast, the TV reports the sudden appearance and disappearance of a giant structure in the mountains. The trio, Kyo, Megumi, and Sunbeam, realize something demonic is afoot, but they are interrupted by the day's true tragedy, Susie's cooking, which should be classified as a biological weapon. We meet Grub, an academic genius with the humility of Tony Stark before he became a hero, and his robotic partner Coral Q. They decide Japan is their vacation destination, and that Kyo and Zatch are their targets. Meanwhile, Kyo is at home playing detective, researching the mysterious structure, and connecting the dots with Art's warning about Faudo and the danger of Bao. He feels like he's being watched, and he's right. The tech duo is stalking him. The trap is sprung in a bizarre way, a yellowtail fish flying through the sky. Kyo realizes instantly it's a setup, Admiral Akbar style. It's a trap, but for Zatch, it's an irresistible toy. The Mamoto sprints after the flying bait, dragging Kyo on a marathon through the city to a highway under construction. There, Grub and Coral Q reveal themselves and lock the exit with magic. The robot pulls a battle transformation, but the process is so fast Kyo can't even see it, leading to a comedic moment of frustration for the villain who wanted to show off. Coral Q tries again but glitches. When the fight starts for real, the robot shows he's done his homework. He studied Zatch's life, Wikipedia, knows all the spells, the order they were learned, and brags about having the perfect data to nullify any strategy. It's basically like facing a hacker in the middle of a match. Coral Q starts off playing the invincible villain, claiming he's analyzed everything and victory is certain. But Kyo, playing detective, spots the bluff. Despite the pose, the robot screamed in pain when he was hit earlier. The strategy then becomes pure button mashing. Kyo sends a rain of Zakariga to prove that the enemy's scrap metal can indeed be dented. Seeing the jig is up, Grub triggers Coral Q's transformation, and the robot changes form like a low-budget transformer. The robot starts reflecting spells and even splitting attacks, forcing Zatch to use his own body as a human shield to save Kyo. Realizing he underestimated the heroes, Grub decides he needs to do a software update on the robot right then and there, mid-battle. He asks for a 3-minute pause, like when Windows decides to update at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, Sunbeam and Ponygon try to get info out of Susie about where their friends went, but her sense of direction is worse than a broken GPS in the middle of a desert. Back at the fight, the update finishes and Coral Q returns buffed. Zatch tries to use magnetism, but the robot turns into rubber, Mr. Fantastic style, nullifying everything. The enemy's brute force is absurd, surpassing Zatch's speed. Kyo realizes the tables have turned and now only the nuclear weapons of the book remain, Zagur Zen and Bao. The heat is on when Coral Q reveals he has built-in radar and has been watching all the battles in the ruins from the best seat in the house, eating popcorn while everyone else suffered, without lifting a finger to help. Zatch is absolutely livid. Driven by rage and battle instinct, he begins dodging attacks with absurd speed without even needing a spell. Kyo, using his 4D chess brain, lands a Zagur Zen on the robot and cooks up an insane plan. When Grub triggers the final transformation, loaded with shields and thinking he can tank anything, Kyo decides to use the enemy's defense against him. The idea is to create a chain reaction distraction by planting electrical charges in the shields. Grub thinks they're missing their mark, but Zatch is actually setting a perfect trap. Once all the points are connected, they unleash the Bauzakirga. The electric dragon uses the connection points to power up, shattering the defenses and knocking out the robot for good. Before turning into digital dust, Coral Q leaves a sinister warning about a mysterious structure that doesn't seem to be Mamoto-made, confirming suspicions about Faudo. In the end, we get a moment of redemption. The robot tells Grub to make some real friends. Cut to the final scene with Grub becoming the strategist for the school basketball team in a totally wholesome high school musical style moment. Taking a break from the brawling, we have an episode focused on feelings. Zatch finds an abandoned comic book about a fruit looking for its mother, basically the botanical version of Finding Nemo. This triggers an existential crisis in the Mamoto, and a longing for a mother he doesn't even remember. He starts observing the city's mothers with an almost anthropological curiosity, eventually focusing on Hana, Kyo's mom. When Zatch opens up about his loneliness, Kyo, with the emotional intelligence of a brick, suggests he just pretend Hana is his mother. Zatch takes it the wrong way, feeling it's disrespectful to his biological mother. He screams the classic, "You don't understand me," and runs away from home. Kyo desperately searches for his partner and bumps into Tia, who's back from Tahiti just for a cameo, but the one who saves the day is Hana herself. She chases Zatch to the park, and after a dramatic tumble, they have a real "this is us" moment. Zatch apologizes, and Hana explains that a mother's heart is huge. There's plenty of room for him to have two moms, one by blood and one by heart. Zatch finally gets that warm hug he was looking for, cries a river, and everything ends well with a packed lunch and a warmed heart. The series' most eligible bachelor, Kafka Sunbeam, decides he needs to get some work done and announces a business trip to Hokkaido. The problem is that Ponygon has Toy Story levels of emotional attachment and despairs at the thought of being away from his favorite human. Despite Kyo's attempts to calm the little horse, Zatch, ever the softie, helps him stow away on a plane. Cut to Hokkaido, where Sunbeam is enjoying the snow and relaxing, thinking he's worry-free. Suddenly, a herd of horses charges straight toward him. And guess who's right in the middle of them? Ponygon himself. After a cute reunion, they decide to enjoy the winter, Frozen style. But the fun in the snow ends when Ponygon starts literally freezing. While Kyo is back home investigating that giant mysterious structure from the news, Sunbeam goes out to get some hot milk and runs into trouble. Enter Sauza and his Ice Mamoto, Cardio. These two aren't playing around. They're the try-hard version of a battle duo, criticizing Sunbeam and Ponygon's lack of sync. The fight begins, and it's literally fire versus ice. The problem is that Cardio has a broken ice armor that even our little horse's fire can't melt, and the enemy duo has terrifying telepathic chemistry. The situation in the snow goes from bad to worse. Ponygon tries to play the hero with brute force, but Cardio's ice armor is impenetrable. To make matters worse, Sunbeam ends up frozen to the ground, becoming a sitting duck. It looks like the end of the road, but this is where the shonen spirit shines. Ponygon's book glows, and he unlocks his third spell, Dio Emura Shuroruk. Now Ponygon gains a suit of flame armor, basically becoming a horse version of the Human Torch. He melts the ice-trapping Sunbeam, but there's a plot twist. He can't control the heat and starts burning his own partner. It's friendly fire turned up to 11. The villains, of course, laugh at our duo's lack of skill, but Sunbeam, even while singed, delivers that classic motivational speech about fighting with your heart. Ponygon remembers his promise to Zatch and regains his focus. He uses an intimidation strategy, creating a giant fire clone that makes Cardio shake in his boots. The Ice Mamoto, who was so arrogant before, freezes in fear. Seizing the opening, Ponygon grabs Sunbeam and hauls tail out of there, using a wall of fire to cover their retreat. It was a tactical withdrawal, but the trauma they left on the enemy was a massive moral victory. We head back to civilization with the arrival of Dr. Riddles and his companion Big Boring, who continues her bizarre dances that turn Kyo bright red with embarrassment. But the business is serious. They need to analyze the footage of the mysterious structure. Riddles calls the whole gang for a meeting at the airport, turning the terminal into a budget version of an Avengers assembly. Chaos reigns at the airport. Megumi and Fulgore attract a mob of paparazzi and fans, looking like a TMZ headline. In the confusion, Zatch and Big Boing get lost and end up in Lost and Found. To complete the disaster bingo, a terrorist gang called Bad Rainy Season tries to hijack the place. Bad move. Big Boing, whom everyone thought was just comic relief, takes down the armed thugs using, well, her physical attributes in a very peculiar combat style. With the crisis averted and everyone gathered at Sunbeam's place, Dr. Riddles finally reveals photos of the giant structure. While everyone debates, Kanchome, usually the court jester, has a moment of terrifying clarity. He realizes that building is actually Faudo, a colossal weapon or entity capable of ending the world. He's so scared he can't even speak, and to confirm how serious this is, we get get a glimpse of Zeno, who already knows exactly what it is and plans to seize control of this apocalyptic force. At the airport, the group looks like the cast of the Avengers splitting up after saving the world. Dr. Riddles, Fulgore, and the Chinese duo Wan Rei and Lian are heading out, leaving that end of summer camp vibe. But before he goes, Riddles drops a bombshell. Faudo, the giant structure of the apocalypse, has vanished off the map like a David Copperfield trick. Kyo, playing Sherlock Holmes, deduces that someone hid the building. Yes, they hid a whole building. To finalize preparations. Kenchomen knows something, but he's shaking like a leaf and won't spill the beans. We cut to a lighter moment, or almost. Susie is watching figure skating on TV and decides her life mission is to take Kyo skating, imagining a romantic date straight out of Disney on ice. Innocent Kyo accepts and invites Zatch and Ponygon, turning the date into a field trip. Word spreads, and suddenly the whole school decides to go, some to show off and others, like Professor Toyama, just to watch Kyo fail. On the day of the event, the expectation was Yuri on ice, but the reality is America's funniest home videos. Kyo and Susie barely step on the ice before they're eating dirt. The rest of the class isn't far behind, and the professor's wife tries to pull an Olympic move and also kisses the cold floor. The professor, frustrated by the incompetence, challenges everyone to a race to a flag. The result is a Frozen-themed battle royale, with people slipping, falling, and piling up. Amidst the chaos, Kyo can only thank the heavens that Wan Rei and Lian aren't there to witness this collective second-hand embarrassment. Zatch receives a mysterious letter, a rare event since he doesn't pay bills. It's from Rain, an old Mamoto friend, asking them to burn his book. The request is so dramatic, it feels like a movie scene where a wounded soldier asks to be left behind. Kyo is skeptical, but Zatch trusts his friend, and they head to the provided address. Arriving in the city, the reception is icy. They knock on a mansion and are met by Jill, a governess with all the charm of Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. She kicks them out, claiming Rain isn't there. To make matters worse, Kyo and Zatch are mistaken for vandals who have been drawing mustaches on people in town and end up fleeing an angry Frankenstein-style mob. They are saved by Sebastian, a mansion employee who confirms that Rain is a good guy and protects the young master, Kyle. The plot thickens when Kyle, the timid millionaire heir and book owner, runs away and ends up hanging from a crumbling radio tower. Zatch and Kyo attempt a heroic rescue, but gravity wins. That's when Rain appears, transformed into a giant Hulk-like beast, and saves everyone. At the hideout, the truth comes out. Kyle is a rich kid, but so shy he can't even speak, and he's being exploited by the estate managers. Rain protects the boy so much that he ends up fighting alone, but he knows this isn't helping Kyle grow. And oh, the mustaches drawn around town definitely wasn't Rain's doing. The day starts with injustice. Jill denies Kyle bread, treating the homeowner worse than Harry Potter under the stairs. Rain has to step in just so the kid can eat. Determined to change this dynamic, Kyo and Zatch set up a confidence boot camp for Kyle. The idea is to make a man out of him, Mulan style. However, the training is a total train wreck. Kyo tries to be motivational, but his intense faces just make the kid cry harder. Rain watches it all and has a sad epiphany. His overprotection is Kyle's crutch. He decides to ask Kyo again to burn his book. Kyle overhears, panics, steals the book, and bolts. Terrible timing for an existential crisis because Purio and Lupa, the real mustache vandals, show up and kidnap the boy. The chase leads to the beach. Kyo is hit by a paralyzing spell and has to be strapped to Zatch's back, looking like C-3PO on Chewbacca. Even so, they manage to fight Purio, but things get real when Rodo and Cheetah arrive. Rodo isn't playing games, he knocks Rain off a rock structure and makes an offer. Ally with them or be destroyed. Rain refuses, saying he doesn't want to be Kane, and takes a brutal point-blank attack to end the episode on a cliffhanger. The brawl against Rodo remains insane, and Zatch manages to save Rain at the last second using Rauzaruk, but the villain is relentless and counterattacks with full force. Meanwhile, Rodo's partner Cheetah is playing it safe, spacing out her spells to conserve energy. Kyo notices the strategy and tries to focus on her, but the Vandal duo, Purio and Lupa, jump in to interfere. They use cartoonish, dirty tricks. First, a glue that pins Zatch to the ground, and then a mist that causes infernal itching and blinds the kid. It's one low blow after another. Watching Zatch take a beating, Rain has one of those traumatic origin flashbacks. He remembers being an uncontrollable monster in the Mamoto world, Hulk smashing everything until he was saved by Zatch's kindness. He realizes he was protecting Kyle the wrong way. Instead of hiding his monstrous side, he needs to use that brute strength to save his friend. Rain assumes his monstrous form, which terrifies Kyle at first, but the Mamoto tanks all of Rodo's attacks and gets real with the boy. He only wears that scary face when he needs to protect those he loves. Kyle sees his friend sacrificing himself, taking hits quietly while Purio and Rodo prepare a finishing move. move. The moment of truth arrives. Kyle has to choose. Keep being the coward who hides, or become the hero of his own story. When a light glows in his hand as he grips the book, we already know the answer. The vibe shifts completely when Kyle finally finds his courage and enters the fray. He unleashes Aberrodio, a colossal spell that forces the villains to retreat instantly. Rodo is furious and tries to target the boy, but Zatch and Kyo provide cover with a perfect Zogger Zen and Zakeraga combo, reflecting the attack right back into the enemy's face with interest. Kyle is unstoppable now, looking like a pro gamer carrying his team. He uses an impenetrable shield to protect his friends and finishes with Rain's ultimate spell, Garbados Aberrodio, which puts Rodo's attack to shame. Seeing the power gap, Purio and Lupa flee faster than the Roadrunner, and Rodo has to carry Cheetah away to avoid being vaporized. Rain, beaming with pride, sees that his mission is complete. The next day, the governess Jill goes back to acting like Cinderella's evil stepmother, trying to humiliate Kyle. But the kid isn't the same anymore. He stands his ground, channels his inner lawyer, and threatens to expose all her financial fraud to the entire town. The woman freezes and immediately starts playing nice, but it's not all celebration. We get a heartbreaking flashback where Rain asks Zatch to burn his book, as he meets to return to his world now that Kyle can stand on his own. It's an emotional farewell where Rain promises to help Zatch become king one day, before disappearing and leaving the boy ready to face life on his own. While Rodo tries to explain his failure to his boss, Zatch and Kyo are at the airport doing some classic last-minute duty-free shopping. They want to bring presents for their friends and decide to buy something for Won-Rae and Lien. Speaking of the couple, things are getting weird on their end. Won-Rae is acting all mysterious, sneaking out and leaving his girlfriend on read. Lien, thinking there's some tabloid-worthy cheating going on, decides to play detective and tails him. She sees him entering a shop and then meeting a mysterious woman. Her blood boils when she discovers he's headed to an underground fighting tournament. Thinking he's there to impress another woman, Lien puts on a Mortal Kombat-style fighter mask and enters the ring to beat some sense into her boyfriend. The misunderstanding turns into a massive brawl when the organizers send their goons after them both. Naturally, they mop the floor with the extras in a flawless display of teamwork. In the end, the truth comes out. Won-Rae only entered the fight to win money and buy new shoes for Lien, since their anniversary was coming up. The final plot twist is pure comedy. When they get home, Zatch's package is already there, and guess what? It's the exact same shoes Won-Rae wanted to buy. At least the thought counted. Zatch and Ponygon are in the middle of their classic park run, fleeing from Naomi, who seems to have stepped out of a horror movie just to torment them. Before the bullying can start, Professor D'Artagnan appears in hero cosplay and saves the duo. Later, this crazy professor invades Kyo's house to talk about some stolen stone tablets, but the conversation gets weird fast. He drops a Riddler-style enigma about having taken his test subjects, and jumps out the bedroom window. The guy is totally unstable. It doesn't take long for Kyo, Megumi, and Sunbeam to realize their partners, including Tia, have vanished. They receive a music box with a ransom recording, very Saw vibes, telling everyone to go to the docks. On D'Artagnan's boat, the place is full of stupid seafood-themed traps, and the professor is playing Invasion of the Body Snatchers, dressing up as Zatch and Tia to confuse everyone. When the confrontation finally happens on deck, the plot twist is ridiculous. It wasn't a kidnapping, just a sleepover party on the boat. The Momoto kids are having the time of their lives because the professor actually pays attention to them, unlike the humans who are always busy. D'Artagnan gives a lecture about spending quality time with their partners, making everyone feel guilty. But since he's a walking disaster, when he tries to light a celebratory cigar, he accidentally hits the ship's self-destruct button. The gang flees on a Miami Vice-style speedboat while the ship explodes in the background. In the end, Kyo decides to put D'Artagnan's madness to use and sends him to research Faudo just to keep him occupied. With Megumi away on business, Tia is babysitting at Kyo's house and is looking suspiciously happy. During an impromptu sleepover with Zatch and Ponygon, she decides to open her heart and tell her origin story in a real drama documentary vibe. She shares that when she arrived in the human world, she was more lost than a tourist without GPS. The worst part was finding Bruuce, a supposed friend from the Momoto world who turned out to be a total traitor. The kid went full Mean Girls villain, attacked Tia, and threw her off a ship in the middle of the ocean. She was saved by Megumi, who took the traumatized girl to the hospital. Tia remained silent for a long time, afraid to trust anyone, but Megumi's patience eventually broke the ice. However, the trauma hit hard when Bruuce showed up at the hospital to finish the job. Tia tried to run away to avoid dragging Megumi into the mess, thinking she was just dead weight. The drama was worthy of a soap opera, complete with crying in the rain. Megumi, of course, wasn't having any of that loser talk and got real. They were friends and were going to face it together. The book glowed right on cue, sealing the partnership. In the fight against Maru's, Tia tried to push Megumi away again, but the pop star showed she had plenty of courage and unleashed their first defensive spell. Back in the present, Tia realizes she poured her heart out to a wall, because Zatch passed out cold halfway through the story. The TV becomes a war zone between Zatch, Ponygon, and Tia, all fighting over the remote to watch their cartoons until Kyo's mom intervenes. Meanwhile, Kyo pulls a Baywatch move and jumps into the river to rescue a drowning child, except the child is a bizarre monkey-rabbit hybrid with a terrible personality. The creature sees the spellbook in the backpack, realizes Kyo is a Momoto book owner, and as a thank you, pulls Kyo's pants down and kicks him back into the water. Zatch and the others meet Ella, a woman looking for her lost partner, Momon. She's very peace and love, claiming she hates fighting. When Kyo gets home, soaking wet and absolutely livid, he discovers that Momon is the delinquent monkey rabbit. The creature appears at the window, and a Tom and Jerry style chase through the neighborhood ensues. Kyo, using his brain, realizes the radar doesn't work on humans and sets an ambush, catching the little pest by surprise. Ella apologizes for her partner's behavior, and Megumi arrives just in time to try and cool things down. But Momon has no limits. He steals Tia's right in the middle of the conversation. The girl goes full Hulk mode with rage, and Megumi realizes there's no other way. They're going to have to use spells to discipline this pervert. The situation spirals completely out of control. Tia is reaching a level of rage that would make the Hulk look like a Zen monk. Megumi tries to settle things with a spell, but Momon is way too slick, dodging everything like he's Spider-Man. To make matters worse, Elle, the holder of Momon's book, has never fought a day in her life and starts hitting the panic buttons. You know when you give the controller to your younger sibling and they just mess everything up? That's Elle. She tries to help but ends up casting a spell that puts Tia in slow motion, turning the girl into an easy target for more humiliation. The monkey takes advantage of the lag to keep messing with her skirt, but they messed with the wrong person. Tia's sheer hatred is so intense, it unlocks a new ability in her book. In a panic, Ella casts a random spell that stretches Momon's ears. Terrible move. Megumi conjures Tia's new sword, which basically acts as a mirror of shame. It reflects all of the monkey's perversions, converting Tia's anger into pure destructive power. The final blow is devastating, and Tia finally regains her inner peace. When the dust settles, Kyo stops them from burning Momon's book. He realizes the creature has a built-in radar and knows the location of the mysterious structure from the Momoto world. Now, like it or not, the pervert has become the group's GPS. While Kyo stays home in full geek mode, devouring books about the demonic structure, Zatch heads out to enjoy a summer festival. The problem is, the kid has the sense of direction of a broken GPS. He loses Kyo's mom in 2 minutes and manages to drop all of his allowance. That's when he bumps into a mysterious girl who looks like she stepped straight out of a Disney movie. She claims to be a princess and is ridiculously rich, trying to pay for street food with insanely large bills, like someone so wealthy they've never seen change in their life. In classic rom-com protagonist fashion, the two share what's left of Zatch's pocket change and spend the day clearing out the festival games. But the joy is short-lived. Some guys in black suits, straight up Men in Black style, show up hunting the girl. She drops a dramatic line about how they came from the moon to take her back. Innocent as ever, Zatch buys the story, throws her over his shoulder, and pulls off some insane parkour across the rooftops to save his new friend. In the end, on the rooftop, the girl confesses the moon stuff was a lie. She's just a rich girl running away from home, like Jasmine sneaking out of the palace in Aladdin. She thanks him for the real-life day they shared and leaves in a helicopter, leaving Zatch with a goldfish and a sweet little life lesson. Ted and Jito continue their endless road trip looking for Cherish. During at a pit stop in a small town, Ted hits the restroom to fix his hair and runs into none other than Barry. It's an awkward scene, two tough guys staring each other down in the mirror while grooming. The mood sours fast when they start insulting each other's looks. Ted, who treats his pompadour with more care than Elvis Presley, loses it when he's called a plumpkin head. The fight starts right there in the bathroom and escalates into an official challenge on a nearby mountain. Barry has blood in his eyes, furious because Ted prioritizes finding his girlfriend over focusing on the title of Momoto King. The fight at the summit is brutal. Barry is significantly stronger, like a final RPG boss, and beats Ted mercilessly with a barrage of Zonus spells. Ted is sent flying, and it looks like game over. He looks at the flowers, remembers Cherish, and gets a massive power of love buff. He stands up out of nowhere with a gaze so intense it makes Barry freeze and remember Zatch. The two decide to settle it all in one final clash of powers, Dragon Ball Z style. The screen goes white in the explosion, and afterward, we see they both survived, with Barry gaining a begrudging respect respect for Ted's romantic stubbornness. Back at school, Suzy activates that infallible female intuition and realizes Kyo's head is on another planet, probably planning his next suicide mission. An invitation for a hike on Maruko's birthday comes up, and Suzy decides to stay up all night making a handmade gift for Kyo, with that heavy DIY TikTok vibe. On the day of the trip, it's a mess worthy of Mean Girls. Suzy tries to give the package to Kyo, but the birthday girl grabs it, thinking it's for her. The tension becomes unbearable when Maruko realizes no one else remembered her birthday. Meanwhile, Kyo is in the middle of the woods with Yamanaka hunting for mushrooms, which, honestly, is the worst birthday gift ever. The situation turns into a rom-com when Maruko realizes Suzy's gift was actually meant for the protagonist. In a surprisingly mature move, she helps her friend find Kyo. Their meeting is heavy. Suzy finally hands over the gift, a lucky charm made of red string, and confronts Kyo about the fact that he's leaving. It's a painful goodbye, with Kyo promising to return without giving details, playing the mysterious action hero part to a T, but the real shot comes at the end. Over at Faudo, the villain Ryo reveals his new allies, and guess what? It's Won-Rei and Li-An, who have apparently switched sides to the dark team. Things just got serious, and Ryo is playing dirty on a Voldemort level. He's cursed Li-An and moved Faudo, stripping the fortress of its invisibility. Kyo receives urgent updates. Dr. Riddles warns that Won-Rei and Li-An have vanished, and a demonic holographic projection appears to explain the situation. The news is a gut punch. Won-Rei only allied with Ryo because Li-An was cursed. If they don't break Faudo's seal in 4 days, the humans die. It's basically lethal blackmail with a 24-style countdown. Desperate not to be the reason Won-Rei commits atrocities, Li-An tries the most drastic exit possible and nearly throws herself off a building. Won-Rei saves her at the last second in a dramatic scene, reaffirming that he will protect her no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Kyo triggers the Avengers Protocol. Apollo, who is filthy rich, arranges a private jet to transport the whole gang. Everyone starts gathering for the rescue mission, except for Kanchome, who is frozen with fear and refuses to board the suicide mission. The countdown has begun, and the tension is through the roof. We've got mid-air chaos worthy of snakes on a plane, minus the snakes, plus a lot of incompetence. On Fulgora's flight, a clueless mechanic left some bedding in the landing gear, forcing the plane into an emergency landing. Kanchome, terrified of going to Faudo, locks himself in the airplane bathroom. Meanwhile, at the airport with Apollo, Ella uses Momon as a living lie detector. The setup is bizarre. She points to countries on a map, and if Momon lies, his face stretches out like Pinocchio. After much stalling, Kyo gives the creature an ultimatum, and they discover Faudo is in New Zealand. Back in the sky, Fulgore delivers a motivational speech to Kanchome through the bathroom door in his best Rocky Coach impression. It works. Kanchome overcomes his fear, uses a spell to literally become the plane's wheels, and saves everyone from a fatal crash. When they finally rendezvous with the main group, Kanchome drops a bombshell he noticed before anyone else. Faudo isn't just a giant building. Looking closely, the structure is shaped like a colossal demon, like an Attack on Titan ready to wake up. The scale of the problem just became astronomical. The apocalypse countdown is ticking, 2 days until Faudo awakens, and the mood on the plane is more tense than a lost season finale. The group is panicking, but Kyo tries to keep morale up, even though everyone knows Faudo isn't just a building. It's an unbeatable RPG final boss. Meanwhile, Zeno confirms to Dufort that Faudo is a weapon of mass destruction, sealed in the depths of the Mamoto world, his eyes gleaming with that classic Bond villain greed. As they arrive at the site, the weather turns foul. The pilot freaks out over the instrument readings, and Kyo, crazy as ever, opens the plane door mid-flight and blasts a Zacher outside. The lightning illuminates the darkness and reveals the nightmare. Faudo is a colossal titan hidden in the storm. With no time to think, the gang skydives straight into the chaos, Mission Impossible style, while Apollo peels out in the damaged jet. On the ground, the group splits up, just like in a horror movie where that always goes wrong. The girls' team and Sunbeam go looking for L, but the focus here is on Kyo, Zatch, Fulgore, and Kanchome, who run right into the welcome committee. The enemy is Keith, a total character who shows up singing Beethoven's Ode to Joy. Kyo, who has zero patience for musicals, immediately fires a bolt at his face. Keith takes offense, dodges with ease, and comparing their recklessness to Barry's warns them that the games are over. To make matters worse, his partner Buzurai arrives to turn the fight into an unfair 2-on-4. The hammers are falling, and things are looking grim for our heroes. Keith and Buzurai are perfectly coordinated, playing like a pro esports duo. Kanchome tries some illusion tricks, but Buzurai shuts them down effortlessly. Fulgore, trying to be the hero, throws himself in front of a fatal attack and becomes a human punching bag to save his partner. Even while battered, he starts singing a song to distract the enemy. It's bizarre, but it works well enough for Zatch to land a hit. Kyo tells Kanchome to get Fulgore out of there, but the yellow-billed duck falls falls into a heavy existential crisis. He starts having flashbacks of Kido and Dr. Riddles, feeling that old trauma of being useless when it counts. He drags Fulgore into the brush, but his conscience weighs on him. Remember that moment in Avengers Endgame where everyone has to give their all? That's Kanchome right now. He refuses to run and charges back onto the battlefield, crying and screaming that he won't let anyone die because of him. He tries to steal Keith's book by force, gets beaten, creates a distraction, and gets beaten some more. The kid is being massacred while trying to buy time for Zatch. Just when it looks like game over, Fulgore crawls back and reads a new spell that appeared in the book, Dima Baruch. Keith attacks with everything he's got, and in a scene worthy of a horror movie, Kanchome is hit dead on and simply evaporates in front of everyone, leaving the group in total shock. Absurd plot twist. The Kanchome that turned into cosmic dust was just a copy. The new spell, Dima Baruch, creating clones of the little guy. The problem is, the original Kanchome is still a coward, so his clones also start running away in fear. Meanwhile, Zatch and Kyo try to hold the line against Buzurai and Keith's partner, who is a martial arts expert and pummels Zatch mercilessly. The turning point happens when Kanchome figures out the mechanics. His clones respond to pure emotion, not verbal commands. When he focuses on his desperate will to protect Fulgore, the army of ducks swarms Keith like zombies from World War Z, climbing and suffocating the villain through sheer numerical superiority. Keith loses his cool and tells Buzurai to clear the area with his strongest move, a giant, destructive spinning top. Seriously, it turns into a lethal Beyblade battle. The top generates a massive tornado. Zatch tries to stop the thing with brute force using Rausaruk, but he's tossed aside by relentless physics. This is where Kanchome truly shines. Channeling the trauma of not saving Kido in the past, he and his clones catch Zatch midair and stop the giant top by hand. The episode ends with Kanchome and his army staring down the villains with the determined look of someone tired of being the comic relief. The battle remains frantic, and Kanchome's clones are holding their own against Buzurai, proving that quantity sometimes beats quality. Keith, seeing that his and his partner's batteries are lower than an old iPhone, decides to bet everything on one last strike. On the other side, Kyo and Zatch are in the same energy-starved boat, saving Zager, Zen, and Bao for a final miracle. When Keith tries to take out the real Kanchome with a cheap shot, Fulgore steps in and saves his partner in an action movie-style rescue. But the real highlight is the strategy. Kanchome reveals he left a clone hiding in the shadows behind Keith Solid Snake style. With the villain immobilized, Kyo seizes the opening and unleashes Bao's Zakergo. The electric dragon ignores the laws of physics, tears through Buzurai's defense, and burns his book. Surprisingly, Keith survives the explosion, but his cigar goes up in smoke, literally. He looks at his partner, sees the game is up, and with terrifying calmness, decides the fight is over and they deserve some tempura. Just like that, they vanish. Meanwhile, Ponygon's team is having trouble with Cherish. When Sunbeam tries to end the fight quickly, One Ray appears out of nowhere, blocks the attack, saves Cherish, and leaves without a word, maintaining that cold Winter Soldier posture. With Buzurai out of the picture, Rio's plan to revive Faudo has hit a snag since he's short on energy. Zatch's group takes advantage of the lull to rest and gossip about One Ray's appearance. Kyo, using his detective brain, deduces that Lien's boyfriend turned traitor because he had no other option to save his beloved from the death curse. Then Alishi and Ria appear, new allies who tell it like it is. They explain a Saw-style dilemma. Either they let Lien die to stop Faudo, or they use Zatch's energy to break the seal, saving the girl but releasing the giant monster onto the world. It's a classic Shofi's choice. Zatch is shocked, but quickly channels his shonen protagonist spirit and rejects both bad options. He decides he's going to save Lien and the world. The crazy plan? Revive the monster, go inside it, and send the beast back to the Mamoto world before it destroys everything. It's a risky 24-hour gamble. Swept up by this motivational speech, everyone agrees to the suicide mission. Alishi approves of the kids' guts and warns them, now they have to enter the belly of the beast, literally. The journey turns into a twisted version of the magic school bus as the gang enters through Faudo's mouth. The place is alive, gross, and full of traps. They reach a room that is basically an anatomy map and try to guess where the control room is. The problem is, the path goes through a pit of stomach acid guarded by one Unko Tintin, a puppet that looks like it crawled out of a Jim Henson nightmare. The Guardian proposes a riddle challenge with their lives on the line. Fulgora gets one right by pure luck, and Kyo humiliates the creature by solving an impossible math equation in seconds. But then, it's Ponygon's turn. Since the horse can't talk, the Guardian throws out a question about a complex mathematical theorem just to be a jerk. Kyo gets so furious at the injustice that Unko Tintin gets scared and changes the question to something ridiculous about tails. Ponygon shows his tail and everyone passes. The joy is short-lived. As soon as they enter the small intestine, explosion. Faudo's defense system activates a giant mechanical drill that takes up the entire hallway. It becomes a scene out of Indiana Jones mixed with Temple Run, with everyone running for their lives to avoid being turned into mush, while Zaruchim and the traitor One Ray prepare to intercept the intruders inside. To make matters worse, the floor turns into a minefield of tentacles that melt anything they touch with acid. It looked like the end of the line, but Fulgore, in a moment of accidental genius, drops some of Tia's clothes. What seemed like a slapstick comedy beat reveals the secret. The holes the clothes fell through are a safe escape route. The group prepares to jump, and Hiroshi tries to blast the drill to buy time but freezes mid-spell. The result? Everyone falls into a liquid trap set by the Welcome Committee, Zaruchim and the traitorous Wanrei. The mood shifts when Zaruchim reveals the truth. Hiroshi isn't a real traitor. He's under a curse from Rio that drains his energy, like Superman exposed to kryptonite. He only wanted to save his own skin because he was literally dying. Zaruchim takes advantage, binding everyone with a spell and ordering Wanrei to wrap up the whole package to take to the big boss. Kyo, always observant, figures out the enemy's attack pattern, but they are silenced before they can react. It seemed like checkmate, but Hiroshi, in a surprising final effort, stands up, ignoring the curse, and frees the gang with a surprise attack, proving that deep down, he never stopped being one of the good guys. All hell breaks loose, and Hiroshi is fighting at his limit, looking like a boxer in the final round of Rocky, barely able to stand. He tries to clear the area but faints from exhaustion. Kyo and Zatch try to take over, but their energy reserves are long gone. It's up to Ponygon and Sunbeam to hold the line, but the little horse freezes. He simply can't bring himself to attack Wanrei, his old friend. Wanrei, focused on saving Lian at any cost, shows no such mercy, and ruthlessly takes Ponygon down. When Zaruchim summons a giant shadow weapon to finish the job, Alishi's partner Ria transforms into an impenetrable shield, Captain America style, tanking the impact. Hiroshi points out a secret exit in the floor and gives a "Fly, you fools!" shout worthy of the Lord of the Rings. He decides to stay behind with Ria to hold off the villains in one last heroic stand. Kyo tries to argue but realizes it's their only shot. The group escapes through the giant's blood vessels, leaving their two new friends to hold the line. Ria refuses to back down against Wanrei, knowing that resurrecting Faudo would mean the end of the world. Hiroshi spends his final breath screaming the names of those who escaped, trusting them to save the day, while Team Zatch flees on Ponygon's back, swearing to make this sacrifice count. While the captured allies are thrown into a cell to await the apocalypse, Team Kyo remains lost in the tunnels, trying to use Momon as a Mamoto energy ways. The problem is, the little guy is such a coward that he intentionally points the wrong way to avoid a fight. Elle loses her patience, gives him a reality check, and delivers a motivational speech, reminding him of Hiroshi's courage. They reach the monster's heart and find a guardian who is a total NPC. He doesn't even know Faudo has left the Mamoto world. Kyo, playing detective, pinpoints the control room's location in the brain. Once there, they access some Matrix-style monitors, and Kyo deduces the location of the teleportation device, since it doesn't even appear on the official map. Exhaustion hits hard, and the gang passes out. After all, 30 hours of non-stop running is no joke. This is where Momon's redemption kicks in. While everyone sleeps, he decides to carry them all on his ears up the stairs, in a total Sam carrying Frodo up Mount Doom vibe. He nearly collapses from exhaustion, but Zatch and Ponygon wake up just in time to help. The trio reaches the top before a massive door, where Momon's radar pings maximum danger. Two powerful enemies are waiting on the other side. The tension is thick at the entrance to the control room because Arth and his partner Cardio are blocking the way like VIP nightclub bouncers. As Team Zatch sleeps heavily on the floor, Cardio immediately opens fire with ice. Luckily, Ella wakes up in survival mode, casting a Matrix-style slow-mo spell and saving everyone's skin. When Kyo and Sunbeam finally wake up, the conflict shifts from physical to ideological. Arth reveals his plan. He wants to use the device to send Faudo back right now. The catch? Doing so would kill all the cursed humans, including Ellie, whom he is carrying in secret. It's the classic trolley problem, sacrificing a few to save the whole world. Arth is in full Thanos mode, believing it's the price that must be paid. But Kill refuses to follow that pessimistic script. He digs his heels in, insisting they can save the world and the girl, typical shonen protagonist stubbornness. He challenges Arth to let him use the panel, guaranteeing he can decipher the ancient Mamoto language and hack the system in 5 minutes. Arth is skeptical, but eventually gives in. Kyo enters action movie genius mode, reading the code directly from the screen while Arth translates, processing everything faster than a supercomputer to find a third option before time runs out. Kyo continues to go beast mode hacking Faudo's system, and Arth is floored because the kid learned to operate ancient alien tech in less than an hour. Meanwhile, an unexpected bro moment occurs. Sauza, Cardio's partner, admits he's only in this because Ellie reminds him of his little sister. Sunbeam Sunbeam realizes the guy has a heart and proposes a temporary truce. Kyo finally finds a loophole in the system. It's possible to send Fado back without killing anyone, but the battery needs a 5-hour charge. The problem? The monster will wake up in 4, leaving a 90-minute window where the giant will be loose and furious. It's a risky plan, but it's the only one they've got. Outside, at Fado's seal, the situation is chaotic. Rio orders everyone to attack the barrier, but nothing works. Just as hope hits zero, Zatch and Arth arrive like the cavalry at the end of a war movie. They combine Arth's ultimate sword attack with a Bauzakerga buffed by several Zagur Zen charges. The combo is devastating, shattering the seal through brute force and freeing the humans from the curse. A victory? Maybe. Fado awakens, and the scale of the creature is absurd, making any cinematic kaiju look like an action figure. To prove he isn't playing around, he swallows a whale like a snack and wipes an island off the map. Rio, now operating the giant like a biological Mika, appears via holographic projection to announce he's the captain now. Those who want to live must kneel. Those who don't will become a statistic. Team Kyo, stuck on top of the monster, becomes the target. Fado tries to crush them with his bare hand, and they have to use every drop of mana to defend themselves as a team in a sequence of near-death misses that would give anyone a heart attack. But Kyo, who always has a Batman-style backup plan with prep time, reveals he planted traps inside the monster's body. One of these traps activates, teleporting Fado directly into a deep ocean trench. The gang celebrates, thinking they've drowned the giant, but the plot twist hits hard. Fado can swim. He returns to the surface furious, and Rio, tired of the games, cuts the power to the return device and sets the next target, Japan. The episode closes with the team watching the monster swim toward destruction, knowing Plan A failed and Plan B was cut at the root. With Fado swimming like Michael Phelps toward Japan, Team Kyo decides on a daring move. The plan? A classic Pinocchio invasion, entering through the giant whale's mouth. Conchome provides an Oscar-worthy distraction, and everyone dives down the gullet before the beast snaps its jaws shut. It's practically inner space, moving through the throat and esophagus until they reach an elevator inside the spinal column. This thing's design was clearly handled by a mad architect. Upon reaching the main corridor, they hit a classic RPG problem. A fork in the road. Momoan, who was supposed to be the GPS, hits a 404 error and points in 2 directions. With no time for debate, Kyo splits the gang into 2 teams, separating the brains of the operation. He goes one way and Arth the other. It's a gamble, but a necessary one. Mid-run, One Ray is in a heavy funk, feeling like the Judas of the group for his previous betrayal, but Kyo gives him a motivational speech to get his head back in the game. But since this group's luck is in the negatives, Kyo's team runs straight into Rodu. Seeing that things are about to get ugly, One Ray decides to hold the line on his own so the others can get through. The man wants redemption and chooses to face the villain while protecting Lien. She, stubborn as ever, refuses a ride out of there and decides to stay and fight by her man's side. Meanwhile, Art's team is struggling against Fado's immune system. Oh, and Zeno and Defort? They're just watching from the sidelines, keeping a low profile. The focus is now entirely on the showdown between One Ray and Rodo. While Kyo and Zatch move forward with heavy hearts, One Ray is paying for all his sins on the battlefield. Rodo, playing dirty, asks his boss Rio to activate Fado cheats, creating clones to surround the Kung Fu master. Things get grim, and One Ray takes a beating worse than a Jackie Chan movie villain, all to protect Lien. But Lien isn't there to be a damsel in distress. She remembers everything they've been through and decides that if they're going down fighting together. The couple synchronizes their movements and turns the tide, striking the real bodies amidst the confusion of clones. However, Rodo taps into Fado's dark power, turning into a final stage boss. They unleash their ultimate special move, a collision of powers that lights up everything. Unfortunately, not every movie has a happy ending. The Flash blinds everyone, and One Ray uses his body as a human shield to save Lien from the final explosion. The impact is felt from a distance by Zatch. When the dust settles, Lien is alone, holding One Ray's headband as his book catches fire. The warrior kept his promise to protect his king and his beloved until the very last second. It's the kind of scene that would make even the toughest guy sweat through his eyes. While we're still catching our breath from the last episode, the camera cuts to Art's team in a tight spot. Sauza and Sunbeam, with Ponygon, decide to take on the duo Fango and Jadun, but their chemistry is total Captain America Civil War vibes. Sauza uses ice, Ponygon uses fire, and guess what? Physics kicks in and the attacks cancel each other out. It's basic science 101. Fire melts ice, and no one is doing any damage. Sauza is desperate, thinking about his little sister who will become a statistic if Fado reaches Japan, and it makes him fight reckless and dumb. come. Arth and Ellie are trapped behind a glass barrier, watching helplessly like fans at an away game. But Ellie delivers an emotional megaphone speech, reminding Sauza that teamwork is the secret sauce. Finally snapping out of it, Sauza and Sunbeam combine their powers correctly. Thermal shock, fire to heat them up, ice to cool them down fast. The enemy's barrier cracks like a cheap phone screen. With the defense shattered, they finish the job and send the evil books to the fire. And to top it off with a dash of Fast and Furious, Ted and Jito come flying into Fado on a motorcycle, ready to reinforce the team. The cavalry has arrived, motorized. Inside Fado, things are getting serious. Zatch, with that shonen protagonist instinct, feels a disturbance in the force and realizes new players have entered the fray. Meanwhile, Kyo's group runs into Gyaron, a Momoto who locks everyone in a room and throws away the key, metaphorically speaking. To save Kyo and Megumi's mana for the final boss, Arashi and Ria decide to tank this fight alone. While Kyo delivers a classic motivational speech, the duo charges in. Ria takes the hits, and Arashi finishes with a combo that burns the enemy's book in the blink of an eye. But the joy is short-lived because Rodo and Cheetah arrive to stir up drama. They bring Lian as a hostage and lie through their teeth, saying Wanrei chickened out and ran away. Kyo, who wasn't born yesterday and has the highest IQ in the anime, realizes instantly that something is wrong. When Rodo lowers his guard, Zatch activates beast mode with Rauzaruk and pulverizes the villain. Then comes a Mission Impossible level plot twist. Lian was actually Zaruchim in disguise, X-Men's Mystique style. Now, Zaruchim traps everyone and calls Arashi for a 1v1 because apparently they have old scores to settle. While the fight rages inside back in the city, we see Suzy lost in the middle of the evacuation, totally oblivious to the impending apocalypse, looking like a bugged NPC in an open-world game. Back at the fight, a heavy flashback reveals that Zaruchim once tried to blackmail Arashi by using his entire village as hostages. That explains the blood feud between them. The battle intensifies, and Arashi tries to sacrifice himself, but Ria, the true MVP, throws himself in front of the ultimate attack to protect his partner. He tanks massive damage, cutting the blow's power in half, but the situation is still critical. Just when all seemed lost and game over was about to hit the screen, the cavalry arrives. And it's not just anyone. Ted and Jito burst onto the scene, breaking everything. Ted goes full Hulk mode and punches straight through the spell, forcing Zaruchim to retreat with his tail between his legs. As the dust settles, the real Lian appears and tells the truth about Wanrei. No cowardice here. The man sacrificed himself, fighting to the end to protect everyone. The mood gets heavy, but the group gains a second win to keep climbing the tower, now with Ted and Jito on the team. Arth's group continues to advance and stumbles upon a bizarre scene. Keith is singing Beethoven in a giant hall, thinking he's on an episode of American Idol. The problem is the guy is a terrible singer. Fulgore, ever the trickster, tries to stall the enemy with some fast talk and asks Keith to tell his life story. Keith, desperate for attention, starts rambling about frying tempura while listening to classical music in a totally random MasterChef vibe. Ellie gets fed up with the stalling and humiliates Keith by singing the symphony perfectly. The villain loses it and attacks. The fight turns into a complete mess, featuring characters jumping rope with the Momotos as stretched out arms. It's that moment of comic relief before the storm. When Keith stops playing around and moves to annihilate everyone, Momon and Kanchome have a bromance moment. Momon wants to sacrifice himself, but Kanchome convinces him that even cowards can be kings. The two share some candy, have a cry, and launch a coordinated attack. But the real highlight comes at the end. Out of nowhere, Barry and Gustav smash through the wall. Keith thinks they're there for him, but Barry only cares about finding Zatch to have a scrap with a worthy opponent. Since Zatch isn't there, Barry settles for thrashing Keith as a consolation prize. Taking advantage of the distraction, the rest of the team slips away toward the control room, until Ted catches Cherish's scent and sprints off like a madman, leaving everyone behind. Joe's group finds Cherish, and Ted finally catches up to the girl he's been searching for the entire saga. But the reunion is no rom-com. Cherish has been brainwashed by Rio and attacks Ted with blood in her eyes. Rio, watching it all from the control room, the fight turns into a literal relationship talk in the middle of a battlefield. Ted refuses to hit back and tries the famous talk no jutsu to bring her back, but Cherish is stuck in a past misunderstanding, believing Ted was responsible for blowing up her home and family. It's pure soap opera drama. Ted takes more hits than Rocky Balboa, but insists on proving she's the most important thing to him, ignoring the group's warnings to defend himself. When Cherish finally launches the finishing blow to end it all, she misses on purpose at the last second. Love wins, the mood shifts, and they embrace. But Rio isn't playing around and triggers a cowardly trap. The Heart Guardian emerges, and Cherish ends up losing her book to save Ted. She starts to disappear Avengers Infinity War style, thanking him for everything. Ted, seeing the love of his life turn to dust, explodes with rage. His book glows, unleashing a new spell, and he lands a punch so powerful it would make One Punch Man Saitama proud, obliterating the Guardian in a single hit before collapsing. With Ted out of commission, the group has to split up. Jito and some of the girls stay behind to tend to the wounded while the strike team moves forward. The spotlight shifts to Arth and Ellie, who come face to face with Rio. Here we learn that Rio is essentially the server admin of Faudo. He blocks the path for the other allies and unleashes monsters upon them. Meanwhile, we get a quick look at Barry's fight against Keith. Keith was bitter about losing to Barry in the past, but the flashback reveals that the legendary battle was actually a tempura eating contest. Barry wins the real fight without much trouble and moves on. Back to Arth. The situation is grim. Rio uses Faudo's system to heal himself infinitely, like a Dark Souls boss that resets his health just when you're about to win. Arth realizes he doesn't have enough DPS to take the villain down while Kyo's team is stuck in the defenses. He makes the hardest choice of all, sacrifice. The knight becomes an unstoppable tank, absorbing all of Rio's damage just to reach the control panel. He manages to hack the system, open the doors for Zatch, and deactivate the defenses, but the price is high. Rio finishes him off, and Arth's book burns. He leaves the future in Zatch's hands and says a heartbreaking goodbye to Ellie. The pace doesn't slow down. Zarochim is about to go after the group but runs straight into Zeno and Dufort. The power hierarchy is about to change. In the main room, Rio is losing patience with Zatch and decides to go all out. He summons his human partner, Beinakis, who emerges from his stomach in a grotesque alien chestburster scene. With his partner out, Rio's aim improves 100%, and he nearly wipes the entire team off the map with buffed spells. However, Rio's party ends when Zeno enters the room. The villain turns pale instantly. Zeno arrives with that evil twin aura and reveals that Zaruchim has already been sent back to the Momoto world. The atmosphere turns tense because Zeno is known as the Thunder Emperor, and his training makes the army look like child's play. The fight that follows is a one-sided slaughter. Zeno humiliates Rio with absurd ease, unleashing lightning bolts more powerful than a buffed Zatch. Desperate and seeing his dream of being king slipping away, Rio uses a forbidden spell and turns into a giant monster, but it's no use. Zeno doesn't even break a sweat, destroying the monster and Rio's book with a single blow. With Rio eliminated, Zeno takes full control of Faudo and accelerates the giant toward Japan. There's a new final boss in town, and the difficulty level just spiked to hardcore. Things get real in Faudo's VIP room. Zeno teleports Zatch and Kyo inside and drops the family bombshell. They are twin brothers. It's that classic Star Wars Luke and Leia moment, except one of them is an electric psychopath. Dufort, Zeno's partner, decides to tell his sob story. The guy was raised as a weapon in a lab until Zeno saved him. Because of this, he thinks humanity deserves to be wiped out. Zeno reveals he manipulated everyone, using the gang as a distraction for Rio while he seized control. The fight begins, and it's a massacre. Zeno is far stronger and toys with Zatch. Meanwhile, outside, the Justice League of Allies smashes through the door with brute force and enters to help. Even outnumbered, Zeno is operating on another level. He prepares a lethal lightning bolt to finish Zatch, but Rhea throws himself in front like an action movie bodyguard. The sacrifice is heavy. Rhea's book catches fire, and he gives an emotional speech passing the torch to the protagonist before vanishing. Zeno prepares the final blow to wipe out the whole team, but Tia, seeing her crush in mortal danger, unlocks a new ability. Her book glows, and she invokes Chajiru Seshirudan, a colossal Wonder Woman-style shield that tanks the devastating attack and saves everyone's lives. Tia's shield works, but it drains her and Megumi's batteries instantly, and they pass out. Zeno realizes that what keeps Zatch alive isn't luck, it's pure power of friendship, and decides to focus his attacks on the fallen allies. Dufort pauses the carnage to have a philosophical debate with Kyo, trying to understand why they fight. The villain uses precognition hacks, predicting Zatch's every move like a Jedi, and even plays Jean Grey by hurling pillars with telekinesis. Outside, Barry and Gustav arrive at the door but decide to watch from the sidelines, grabbing popcorn while the world almost ends. Mid-beatdown, Kyo explains to Dufort that their strength comes from the bonds they've built. Dufort's mind glitches, a total blue screen of death as he realizes his life could have been different if he had found someone like Zatch. He panics and loses control. Zeno, seeing his partner become unstable, decides the solution is simple. Wipes Zatch and Kyo's memories again, Men in Black style. But the plan backfires. The precious memories trigger a defense mode, and Zatch's book glows a brilliant gold. Zatch stands up transformed, trading blows at absurd speeds. The episode closes with a classic power clash. Zatch's giant dragon against Zeno's ultimate weapon, in an explosion that promises to redraw the map. The golden book is the ultimate cheat code, and the buffed Bao wins the power struggle, hitting Zeno dead center. But the evil brother is the world's worst loser. He refuses Zatch's offer of peace, shatters Faudo's control gem, and disappears. The result? The giant is now a runaway train 15 minutes away from destroying Japan. Kyo takes command and evacuates all allies, teleporting them away in a scene worthy of Titanic. They need to destroy Faudo, but time is running out. Just as the monster reaches the city, here comes the plot twist. Brago and Sherry appear. The Gothic rival uses his insane gravity to pull the giant to the ground, providing the perfect assist for our protagonist. With the target pinned down, Kyo and Zatch unleash one final Bao Zakurga with full power. The dragon multiplies, grips the giant, and blows everything sky high in a Michael Bay-level explosion. Faudo becomes scrap metal in the sea, and the world is saved. A while later, once the dust has settled, the final encounter happens on the grass. Zatch and Kyo come face to face with Brago and Sherry. Sherry finally calls Zatch by his name, showing her respect. The screen fades to black just as the final battle for the throne between the two rivals is about to begin.